Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Show me what you got. Oh,
Is that everything you got?
last turn.
Catch me if you can.
That was great.
That was a good game.
Unlock true experience with GT Omega.
Unleash the racer in you and feel the thrill of racing all out on the open road.
Hello everybody and welcome to the GT Omega Challenge Cup here for round 3 at Donington Park. It is the first of 2 visits to the British Isles on this championship. Later on we'll be finishing off our season at Silverstone, of course, in 6 rounds time. But for now we head to the Midlands and Donington Park for round 3 of this championship. It's a wonderful circuit, really unique, obviously loads of fast flowing corners, undulations along the way and a few overtaking opportunities as well. It's set to be another fantastic race of this championship that has kicked off so well over the last couple of weeks. Starting off, of course, at Monza and Kyalami. Before this, we head now to Donington for the third instalment of entertainment. My name is Ewan O'Leary. I'll be alongside David Christie for the action here tonight. It's good to have you alongside me, David, once more. It's going to be a good race. Donington Park, the first time we'll be in the UK this season, not the last either. But I'm very looking forward to this race. It's been a great couple of openers.
Yeah, it certainly has. It's great to be back. Thanks very much, Ian. And surprisingly, GT Omega invited me back yet again for another broadcast. Wonders never cease here. But joking aside, yeah, look, what an opener we've had to this championship already. BS Plus competition and Yaz Heat GTWR taking a win apiece, set up really, really nicely. It's such an early stage. I mean, we've still got, what's that, about 6 rounds still to go. The likes of Nürburgring and Misano still to come. But yeah, shots have definitely been fired in those 2 horses right out at the front at the early standings. But talking about Donington, I love Donington. One of my, if not for the Nordschleife, Donington is like close second for that one. Don't ask me why or how that works out, but it's one of my first racetracks that I took part in last year in the City Car Cup. An incredible track, and in the sim, it's just as exhilarating. That feeling you're going down Hollywood, down the Craner curves. Yeah, that is a wonderful, wonderful feeling. Very, very good track for attacking as well. It's not like say like Mazzano where it's fairly narrow and there's not too many overtaking opportunities. Plenty of runoff onto the grass. Yeah, it's going to be an action-packed night tonight with how fighty and how elbows out these drivers have been so far.
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, we've had 2 great rounds so far, and it's set to continue. Yeah, at Donington Park, one of my favourite circuits as well. I've got to say, we're not going to get into what is the actual circuit in the world. That is a slippery slope. So we'll avoid that for now.
Come on, Ian. What's on your list then? What would just give us one or two?
Well, I don't know. I've always said my favourite circuit in the world is Bathurst, which is
that's a good choice though. That is a good choice.
Well, I think so, but some people don't. Of course, we're visiting Mount Panorama a little bit later on in the season as well. If you'll be with us for that on round 6 of about five or so weeks' time, should be a good race. But yeah, it's a slippery slope to go down that one. So we'll avoid it for now. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about those teams who have been running well so far. I mentioned, or you mentioned, of course, the BS Competition and Yas Heat teams doing very well so far. They are 1 and 2 in the championship right now, having taken a win apiece. I think the most interesting thing to note, though, from the opening 2 rounds is that both pole sitters went on to be victorious. Is that going to stay the same here today, though?
Not just that, but to my recollection, they absolutely flew away with it as well. They took the pole position and they just launched it straight off into the stratosphere. I think it's an important thing because when you get teams that are this good and you get drivers that are this good, it's very difficult to find any sort of competitive advantage. I don't think it's going to be the same tonight at Donington, unless second, third, and fourth get involved in a bit of a squabble. Ewan, I think this is going to be a very, very even affair, and with how tight some of the corners can be, I think we're going to see quite a big repair bill for many of the teams tonight.
Yeah, certainly. You mentioned earlier that there's not much runoff here. There's quite a long way till the barriers until on the outside of the circuit, but it is all grass. So you are going to be punished for going off the road, which is what we like to see, of course. So yeah, the challenge remains here at Donington tonight, which is going to be good. In case you've not been with us so far for whatever reason in this championship, it's the GT Omega Challenger Cup, of course. In case you don't know how it works, it's a 15-minute qualifying session that'll be starting in a few moments' time. We'll be getting to that shortly. The free practice is going on at the moment. And then we'll get into a 90-minute race, of course, where you'll have to do a driver swap. The 2-driver element of this coming into effect once more here, which is, of course, good to see. Adds another element to the competition here tonight, which is going to be good indeed. So qualifying getting underway shortly, and we'll bring that to you when we get there. Yeah, the 2-driver element of things has been interesting so far. The pit strategy element of things also with the 1 hour and a half races. We'll see how it really develops tonight, but people have seemingly wanted to split things down the middle rather than go necessarily really early or really late, which you might expect. So we'll see if people have to go off strategy a little bit tonight, because obviously if you get stuck behind somebody in these races, then it's an option for you to get past anybody that you're stuck behind.
Yeah, we've not seen any crazy strategy so far in the championship. The other thing that differentiates this from real life is obviously the fact no safety cars. So, like at the weekend where we saw with British GT, both races being punctuated by safety car incidents, and of course Angus Fender will be no stranger to that. He was actually out there this weekend racing at it. It punctuates the race and it really changes things up about. So it'd be very, very difficult for them to do that. So it makes them more inclined to play it safe and do that 45-minute stint and cut things down the line. But 2 things I did want to say. Brian on the Twitch chat saying that Cadwell Park, I would love to see Cadwell Park in a GT3 game. It's not going to happen, let's face it, because SRO very unlikely to visit there anytime soon. No. But that is, my God, that is the most exciting racetrack that you could ever want. I mean, it doesn't lead for great overtaking, but yeah, it's a proper test. We've also got to say a big thank you to Jardier, who has apparently sent all of his stream over to us tonight, Ewan. So again, big get well soon. Hopefully he's on the mends now. But Ewan, looks like we're on the last throws of free practice here.
Certainly does. As I mentioned, we'll be getting towards the end of this in a couple of moments' time, and then we will be into what is a 15-minute qualifying session. We're getting an early view as well as to who is going to qualify on this occasion. Gregor Schill looks like he's going to take it for BS Competition. George Boothby for Yas Heat, two huge teams, of course, that we've seen battling it out so far in this championship. At the 39 McLaren, Jaroslav Honzik currently driving that car. He looks like he's going to be qualifying for those. He apparently sent his, as you say, sent his stream over as well, which is nice. And hello to everybody tuned in here tonight, of course. And those three look like they are getting away from the rest of the field. About 2/3 of a tenth separate the three of them, which is not a big margin at all. But it does set us up for what is going to be a good qualifying session here. After a couple of rounds in this championship, we're starting to get a bit of an idea as to who is going to be up the front every week. And you'd expect those three teams to be right up there at the start of the day. Just thinking about this one, and then they do indeed deliver. So yeah, no real surprises at the moment in free practice. And to be honest, I don't expect huge surprises in qualifying. It would be a little bit of a surprise to see pole go to anyone who's not one of those top three at the moment, really.
Yeah, certainly are. And actually, talking about Jardier, Ewan, I've just noticed Jardier's with us tonight, actually racing. So that'll be the new Yas Heat community team. I would imagine the number 39, because we don't have them on our entry list. We got told of the 39, of the new team joining tonight, Yas Heat community, and that'll obviously be them. So. Wow, that adds definitely a new hat into the ring. But where are Volante Racing? Where is number 14? So Georgis Karakis down in 7th place at the moment. They're currently, what are they, 4th in the championship just now? Yeah, behind Jardier Community. I was expecting to see them up a little bit, but also great to see the number 31 up there. That is, of course, West Competition Racing, Victor Nikolai, up there into to 5th position just now. And they're doing a fairly decent job. They took a good haul of points, not taking any points in the first round, but made up for it by taking that 2nd place last time out. So free practice over. I'm not really surprised to see who's up there, but it does lead to the fact that this is going to be very, very close indeed here.
It certainly does. We've got checkered flag falling now on this free practice session, of course. And then we'll be getting into qualifying, as I mentioned. But yeah, Gregor Schill taking first blood, you could say, in this free practice, if it really counts for anything. Not anything material, but it will maybe have a bit of a psychological advantage. Who knows? To him over the rest of the field. But yeah, the 89 taking it over the 75, then the 39. No real big surprise teams jumping up. I guess the 31 is maybe one that you could say for West Competition Racing, but they were second last time out. So how much of a surprise is that really for them to be in 5th position? It's the usual suspects up towards the front. We mentioned that 39 of Jaroslav Honzik making its debut here today for Yas Heat Community. He'll be alongside Mikhail Statsenko in this race. But we've also got another new car in the form of last-minute competition, the number 5, aptly named, I suppose, in their Aston Martin. They're currently down in 15th. After this free practice session, it'll be Guido Zito and John Areza who will be driving that car throughout the day today, making their debut in a 19-car grid that only seems to be getting stronger each week, really. We saw, obviously, newcomers West Competition Racing last week. Absolutely, they were absolutely fantastic at Kyle Army. So, you can't count out these new teams by any stretch of the imagination, and Jaroslav Honzik is going to be a force to be reckoned with in this qualifying session, at least, and indeed, of course, in the race when he's combined with Statsenko.
Oh, that is absolutely the case. I wish you could have seen my face when you read that out there, Ewan, because I literally winced as you said, Mikhail Statsenko, of all the people to have as his teammate. Statsenko is one of the fastest out there, regular on the pro esports series for Assetto Corsa Competizione, the SRO esports series. Yeah, that is I said this on week one at the start, especially when we were, on the same night as one of the official SRO sports competitions. The level of competitions, the level of drivers that we've got in this championship, I'm absolutely floored by the drivers that are in here. It's absolutely fantastic to see. Added in that 39 team, I mean, that just ratchets it up again. Now, the other thing is, I've been watching Jardier streams quite a lot lately, and he has got a lot of luck on his side right now. You, the amount of streams I've seen where he is in like third or fourth place, and first and second have an almighty accident, and he just walks away with the win. So I get a lot of his fan base will be thinking or hoping that that is that's what happens tonight here. But yeah, awesome stuff as we see Taras Yanikovic here for TJ Porca racing in the 38. Now, the Porsche hasn't had the best of runs so far this championship. I mean, saying that, they are obviously in ninth position. I think this is one of the tracks that Porsche will be able to stretch its legs on. What do you think?
It's very possible, judging by the free practice times didn't quite reflect that, but they're never too reflective of what's actually going to happen, especially occasionally. So we'll see. It's very possible though that the Porsche could have its day today. Obviously, we've got a number of strong ones, not least this one in ninth in the championship at the moment. The 116 currently being driven by Valentin Barrier at the moment is, I think, third in the championship right now. Yeah, indeed it is. So yeah, very possible that it can have a good run at the moment. Going to be our first car to set a lap time here, by the looks of things, coming down towards the Melbourne hairpin, a downhill braking zone. Possibly one of the better overtaking opportunities, really, given it's such a slow corner, but it's difficult to really gain anything through the S's at that little chicane, so it will be tricky. And then to Goddard's, the final corner, also downhill. Can't really see where you're going throughout the corner, but eventually it will spit you back out onto the front straight, and we'll get our first few times in. It's 1:26.6, which is about 7 tenths down on where we were in practice, but you can throw that out the window already, because Gregor Schill has already gone quicker than he did about 15 minutes ago. He's already into the 25.8s as Honzik goes just into second place. What about this Porsche of the other Jardier community team car over the line for them at the moment? And I'm afraid it's no lap time at all. So Gregor Schill, as he did in the practice session, setting the pace here in qualifying as well. He's got a 1/10.5 margin over the rest of the field.
That's a time and a half right there. And it's weird because, in every other broadcast that I do, and I tell the viewers about, qualifying, and their first couple of laps will be trying to get in what's called a banker lap. But yeah, that's definitely not happening tonight. Gregor Schill has, in fact, there we go. I've just got a new rhyme right now. Gregor Schill has no chill. It's straight in there. I'm really proud of myself, Ian, for that one. I'm not gonna lie. But 1:25.8 right off the bat. I mean, come on, that's really fast. He may get challenged for that, but right off of the bat, I mean, that is just wickedly fast for the BMW. Now, I know that the BS competition guys have been doing a lot of time trials this week. They've been doing, I believe BMW have got an official time trial competition out at the moment. So I know they've been doing a lot of work on that, but still, that is an impressive time. As interesting to see, and of course, viewers might be wondering, well, why is he going the long way around that corner? Well, of course, that's the last corner before you start a lap, so you want to get as straight an exit out of that last corner as you possibly can to make sure that you've got as much speed going down that straight. Every extra 2-3 miles an hour is an extra 10th, 2/10, 3/10 off of your lap here.
Yeah, interestingly, the 116 going to the front with just 5 minutes into this qualifying session right now, and Barrier has gone quicker with a 25.6, a couple of attempts faster than the BS competition BMW. So there it is. Got a advantage to Porsche at the moment. George Boothby, we're on board with him right now. It's a bit slow starting in this qualifying session. It was over a second down, nearly a second and a half down on the Porsche. But he's got himself right up to within half a second now through the chicane. Oh, and very nearly off completely out onto the grass on the left-hand side there. But he's just about stayed on the road as being he's going to be getting himself down into the Melbourne hairpin, trying to keep it tight on that apex on the right-hand side. Didn't maybe quite do it as much as he wanted there. And then obviously into this final corner, where it really is difficult to see where you're going, he's going to pull wide and rather set himself up for a lap time in a few moments' time, rather than go for one right now. As Prendergast in the 200 comes up towards the line right now. Another one of the McLarens running well right now. There's 4 of them in the top 7. And Prendergast at the moment is the 7th of them, because Caracas just goes up into 3rd place for Volante. This is looking very, very close indeed, with Ignavicius also up in 8th place right now, only half a second down also. The 31, I believe that's West Competition Racing, who just jumped up there as well in the last few moments. So, yeah, it's all looking very close, all looking very encouraging indeed. That top 9 or so separated by less than 7/10 of a second. I know it's not a very long circuit, but that is still nevertheless very impressive.
It really, really is, isn't it? And, mark my words, by the time that we get closer to it, that'll be at least 12 cars that we've got within 1 second. That'll be very, very close indeed. But what a lap from Valentin Barrier. I love it when drivers immediately prove me right. I did say that I think the Porsche was going to be able to stretch its legs here tonight, and proving exactly that. I don't think it's over. I think the BMWs will get the upper hand tonight. The pace from Gregor Schill, given that was his first lap, his only lap that he's got on the timing sheet there. Whether or not he can improve on that is by the by, but we'll certainly see with 7.5 minutes left to go here in qualifying as George Boothby goes across the line. How's about that? Just sets the line off the track, 125.6, and I think that is the essence of basically saying job done.
Well, it is for now, halfway through this qualifying session, and George Boothby is currently on top of the standings by just under half a tenth of a second, I should say. He's already taken 1 pole position, of course, in this championship. That was back at Monza 2 weeks ago. He was not able to do it at Kyalami. He had to settle for what was a 4th place on the day. It's behind the Jardier Community McLaren. But yeah, first at the moment for Boothby. There's a number of cars getting themselves set up. We're going to go on board with West Competition Racing. Hopefully we can stay on board for a lap here and have a little view as to what Donington Park is like from the cockpit. As I mentioned, very unique circuit, very fast circuit, but up and down all the time, this circuit, especially down here at the Craner curves. You can see where you're going just about, but that doesn't kind of take away from the elevation that you do see on this circuit. Obviously the TV screen does a bit of flattening out here as well. If you've ever been in real life, I'm sure we both have been in many times, David. It's a bit steeper than you might see here, especially not here, but in a couple of moments' time when we get up towards Coppice, turn 8. This is really quite steep here.
It really is, actually, even over to McLean's as well there. It's such a frightening corner as Old Hairpin, because you're coming flying down the Craner curves. The car's absolutely unbalanced, and you'll have seen it yourself, Ewan. If you even think about looking at the brake pedal the wrong way or too early at that corner, then it's game over, because you're either going flying off into the left-hand side, or you're going in for one almighty spin into oncoming traffic down that right-hander. But it looks like Sebastian Apostle here doing a good job getting the rest of the track done. If only he hadn't, scrubbed off that lap at the exit of McLean's and into Coppice. But again, you see that wide line on the exit of the final corner here. 5.5 minutes left to go. Valentin Barrier then 4/100ths of a second off of the pace. Gregor Schill hasn't done anything since. So is this going to be a McLaren night here? And is this going to all belong to George Boothby?
Well, yeah, see that McLaren, Porsche or BMW at the front at the moment. 3 manufacturers involved. We've got another 3, a little bit further down. Of course, we're Bentley represented in 10th place, and with Verstappen currently driving that car. The Aston Martin, John O'Racer, currently in 16th position, just under 2 seconds behind, and the Ferrari currently propping up the rear of this field with Craig Hamilton at the moment driving that car. So yeah, we've got multiple manufacturers represented, but which of them is going to be taking pole this evening? Just under 5 minutes until we find out. At the moment, it's Boothby, Barrier and Schill, 1, 2 and 3. But who's it going to be by the end? Reiter Engineering Esports currently down in 18th position. This is Maximilian Prodol at the moment, going up towards the line right now in another one of the Porsches, to improve but can't quite over that last lap time. A 28.4 for him on that last lap time is not quite good enough to see himself any further up the order right now. Every single car is out there on the circuit right now. We've got 19 cars, so it's not going to be too much of a traffic jam, but it isn't the longest circuit in the world either, so finding a little bit of free track space is going to be important, of course. I think far more important, though, is just nailing a lap here. That is going to be the difference between pole and second place here, rather than actual track position out on the road, as we do see a yellow flag coming just to out of turn 7 into 8 at the moment. The 26th car looks like it's been off the road. That is the only Ferrari, of course, I mentioned a little bit earlier on. Got to avoid those yellow flags as well, of course, if you're going to be on pole today, but there's not a lot you can do about that. It's just about getting your head down and doing the best you can with 3.5 minutes to go.
Well, that's it, and it's definitely starting to look like it might be a McLaren day at the races here, as we've got 3 of them, 4 of them actually in the top 6. You've got Boothby, you've got Honzig, Prendergast and Caracas in that top 6 as well. 1 BMW where it was looking so strong for them early on. Make no mistake, I mean, that was still a heck of a lap time from Gregor Schill, but I'd be more inclined to watch the 116 of Valentin Barry. Now, from experience with that Porsche, it's a difficult one because it's got the straight line speed, but it doesn't do very good with its tyres. It does seem to chew them up a little bit quicker than the likes of the McLaren and the BMW. So we'll keep our eye out for that and see if that does cause any issues, because obviously, you know, Valentin Barry might not be starting in that car. It might be his teammate Krzysztof Muskowski who takes the lead off that one. So we'll just have to wait and see who takes over first. But as it stands, you know, yes, we might get a new pole time, but it looks like, given that we've had about 5-6 minutes of peace, maybe that's qualifying kind of coming to its natural conclusion here.
Yeah, we didn't see an awful lot of lap times actually improved at Kyalami in the second round either, which was a bit weird. But maybe it will be the same here today. 2 minutes to go, and Barry once again runs wide. The Porsche in the background just running very wide as well to get the best run possible down onto the front straight. Going to be 2 more attempts at this one if he wants it. Caracas looks like he's having another go here as well for Volante in the number 14 car. They've had a good start to the season as well, of course. With a 4th place in the championship at the moment, 2 top 5s, a 5th place, of course, at Kyalami last time out. Just about saw off the 112 Audi, which I think has a Leipa Esports one that is not with us here today, unfortunately. But hopefully they'll be back in the future. This car also running a bit wide, so it does seem that the same thing is happening for the second week in a row. We haven't seen an improvement for a good 5 minutes now, 5, 6, 7 minutes. So maybe the same thing is happening. We're not seeing any improvements at all in the second round, which is very odd to see.
As the cars go out as well, the track will be getting slightly warmer as well. Tyres will be getting more and more worn. I haven't seen any cars diving back into the pits as of yet. The other thing as well is that they've got a delta on their display, so they can know exactly how they compare to the latest lap times as Honzig comes across to start what's going to be his final lap as well. So, you know, if you get down to the hairpin and you know that you're not going to make it, you might as well just bail out. As we see a car off into the inside there, that looked to be the number
Caracas.
14 of Caracas that goes into pits. But if you get to the hairpin and you think, right, well, I'm not going to improve on this, you might as well make sure that you're in the best position for your next lap round. Yeah,
no, it's totally understandable. But yeah, it's a little bit odd to see, nevertheless, as we see a number of cars off the road, knowing that they're not going to improve. Valentin Barry being one of them, Gregor Schill as well, who comes into the pit lane. It's looking less and less likely that George Booby is going to lose this qualifying pole position. By the looks of things, the checkered flag does now fly, and we are going to see the final lap times of the day coming over right now. It's GTWR Yas Heat at the moment, currently leading with George Booby. Is he going to assert that dominance by just improving his lap time ever further? Not quite. It's another 25.6, but it's not quite quick enough. Now the Yas Heat Community 39 car, new entry for round 3 here at Donington Park. Jaroslav Honzik making an appearance here in the Challenger Cup, trying to push himself maybe onto the inside of the second row. If he can just find 7,000ths of a second, he'll push himself past Gregor Schill over the line for Honzik, and it's not quite good enough. It's a 25.9. which is not bad at all, but it's not quite good enough to improve once more. Felix Jeepers also over the line right now. A little bit of bad luck at Kyalami last time out, but he's qualified himself into 8th position at the moment. None of the top 10 able to improve there, or even still out there on a lap times. Jimmy Lynn in 15th position, trying to improve in his BMW. Can't do that at the moment. Bit of a shake of the wheel in frustration almost as he comes over the line, which is disappointing to see. Lukas Sidor for Volante Racing. They're a little bit further down than maybe you'd expect in there. McLaren only 12th, I'm afraid, for them. So 9 cars separated by less than 6 tenths of a second, which is very encouraging to see. But rather bizarrely, nobody improving in the second half of this session. It's George Boothby and Valentin Barrier who are going to be on the front row together. A second pole for GTWR and Yasheed.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you get to the end of that qualifying session, we've seen it so many times, Ewan, haven't we, where they set a lap and then, they then over the next, 8-9 minutes, it's a case of they make all the improvements. But yeah, that didn't happen. It was just everything out from the very get-go there. Really happy to see that 116 up in second place there, the Jardier community car. Even more so to see Angus Fender in the 89 BS Plus competition in 3rd place there after a fairly difficult weekend, but a weekend of moving forward for that real life BMW of Century Motorsports, the British GT. But George Boothby taking pole position, Ewan, and just enough time to run us through our grid.
Yeah, let's do that, shall we? The 19-car grid before we get underway for 90 minutes of racing here at Donington Park. It's going to be George Boothby leading us off in the 75 GTWR Yasheed car, currently second in the championship, of course, but on pole here alongside the 116 of the Jardier community team. Angus Fender, well, it might not be him, but either him or Gregor Schill will be starting the BS competition car from 3rd. It's going to be Jaroslav Honzik in the 39 Yasheed community car in 4th. Then the Butterfly Effect esports team, the number 200 McLaren, starting from 5th place. A great qualifying from them, just alongside Volante Racing. Then the 31 BMW, that is going to be West Competition Racing, second last time out, 7th on the grid here today, with the 38 Porsche of TJ Porker Racing. Their Porsche currently lining up 8th. A little bit of bad luck, as I said a little bit earlier, for Felix Deepers during the Kyalami race. He qualifies into 9th ahead of Verstappen in the only Bentley on the grid. They're lining up from 10th. The 125 McLaren of RNE Team Red will be in 11th place, alongside the 199 of Volante Racing. That's the second Volante car on the grid. The Riser Esports Porsche will be in 13th position, ahead of Consistent Racing Esports on the 7th row of the grid. Then the final of the BMWs, that is the 72 Rev Sport International car. Then the 724 Reiter Engineering Esports, the 23 McLaren of COS Esports, the newcomers, the number 5 last minute competition Aston Martin on the back row of the grid, just ahead of the sole Ferrari on the grid here, the number 26 Team Kamikaze team, headed off by Craig Hamilton, or indeed Harley Smith, in this race. So that is your grid, 90 minutes of racing setup. But before that, of course, it's the formation lap. Rolling start here, of course, 2x2 as always, and we're getting set for a great evening of racing. 90 minutes of action here at Donington Park, and it's McLaren, Porsche and BMW 1, 2 and 3 at the moment. Who knows which way this is going to go?
Well, Twitch chat, you heard the man, the formation lap underway. Get your bets in now. Who do you think is going to take the W tonight? Lots of runners, lots of riders out there. Ewan, for me, I'm going to say, I want to say the BMW, the 89 BS Plus competition. I've got a horrible feeling George Boothby will try and run away with it, but I'd like to see that Porsche take the win tonight.
I would certainly like to see that Porsche take the win. It would be nice to see a third different race winner in 3 rounds here in the Challenger Cup. But and I always hate it when other people go for the pole sitter, or indeed when I do it. But I think I'm going to have to here, judging by the performances on the season so far. Looking at the previous form, I think you're absolutely right. George Boothby is going to try and run away with this one, and I think he may well succeed in doing so. So let's wait and see. Obviously, I hope it's going to be an interesting battle. as indeed we saw, especially in the first half of the Monza race. In the second half, the 75 team really did run away with it and ended up with about a 10-second victory, which was really misrepresentative of the race that really went down. It was basically the battle between the BS Competition and Volante racing cars that really extended that gap, maybe bigger than it should have been. But I think GTW Yas Heat are going to do it once more. But we'll wait and see, of course. It's going to be a very interesting race. Just past 4 in the afternoon in sim time here. So given that we're in the summer now or in the spring, it's not going to get dark, just mildly less light, if you like. Yeah, we'll be almost there as we go up towards the Melbourne hairpin. Everybody's setting up 2x2 and trying to get through turn 1 here, which can be a bit of an operation really in these first couple of corners. And of course down the hill at the Craner curves as well. I've seen incidents there in the past in many series that have obviously been racing here, both in real life and on ACC as well. So let's wait and see how the GT Omega Challenger Cup gets on. Coming up towards the final corner here at Goddard's, you see the left-hand side of the road. It kind of falls away from you, if you like. We're through here at full racing speed. That's what they're going to be doing in 1 lap's time, because we are getting set and getting ready to go green flag racing here at Donington Park. Round 3 of the GT Omega Challenger Cup set to get underway. We're under the control now of GTWR Yas Heat driver George Boothby, who's holding us for a very long time at the moment. And they go green. It's a great start on the outside line from the 116 Porsche, braking late, trying to get the lead here at the moment from Boothby, but not going to be able to by the looks of things. The 75 is going to hold the lead through turn 1 at least. But how's it going to look when we get down towards the old hairpin? The Craner curves are coming. Turns 2 and 3, sweeping around the outside. The McLaren takes the advantage here ahead of the Porsche. Then it's BMW and then McLaren. Well held there by George Boothby, but he came under a lot of pressure early on.
Oh, that was a lot of tentative acceleration there. That Porsche desperate to get on the accelerator out of that first corner there, but it just couldn't get it done. And this is the problem. Now, we worried about George Boothby being able to run away with this. I don't think the Porsche will allow him, because the straight line speed, you saw the acceleration coming out of that corner. Watch how much that car will get right onto the back of that McLaren once it gets a decent run here. As I say that, he starts to drop back, of course he does. But it's through the chicane. That's where you're going to make up or lose a lot of the time, and the Porsche goes defensive. The PS Plus competition car tries to get around it, got a much better exit through the chicane there. That is going to be BMW up the inside there of Sebastian Apostle. Ewan, this is turning out to be a very, very interesting first lap for the BMWs here.
Yeah, they're really on the offensive here. The 31 of West Competition Racing moving forward very well. And if you remember back to last week at Kyalami, starting from 3rd position or 4th even, they got straight up into 2nd on the very first corner of the race. Looking to do something similar here today as somebody's in the grass in the background there. Looks like Jimmy Lynn in the 72 BMW that has gone into the grass coming out of the final corner there. It looks like Prodol as well has had a couple of problems for Reiter Engineering off of these first couple of corners. But it's George Boothby who's in control at the moment. Maskowski having a few problems defending from those behind. Gregor Schill, Jaroslav Honzik and Apostle and Caracas. They're all here. They're all right behind the Porsche. This is exactly the situation that, as the neutral, you hoped wouldn't happen, because it would allow the leader to get away. But it's exactly what is happening. The battle for second has a real prominence early on in this race, and a battle for second will always help the leader, as it is right now.
Yeah, and Gregor Schill in that BMW looks very, very fighty indeed. He's going to make a move by the time they get down to the chicane. A little bit of contact there, a little bit of unnecessary contact there. That Porsche is going to feel like he got shoved out onto the right-hand side there. Tries to defend, tries to end up blocking another BMW there, and that Porsche is always going to overcook it into the corner there. Frustration sets in there, Ewan. You're absolutely livid. You feel like you've just been driven off the racetrack here, and you're not concentrating, you're not thinking properly here. You're overdriving the car. He needs to just calm down, think better of it. Krzysztof Maskowski will get back into this, and he will get a shot again back onto the podium there. But again, while he's like this, you just need to calm down, especially going into to Redgate. It looks like he's had a little bit of a think there, but again, just needs to stop overdriving that car. And again, this is where tyre management comes into the key here. But like you said, I mean, it's what we didn't want to see. George Boothby And we have to be fair to George, right? It's not because we don't want him to win, it's because we don't want it to be a dominant race. We don't want it to be like a 15-second gap, because it's more exciting if it's like 2 or 3 seconds. But again, it's testament to the incredible work that they put in that number 75 car for Yazheat GTWR.
Yeah, it's nothing against them. There's no doubt about that. As we look at the battle for second, Mashkowski, unfortunately, getting into a bit of contact about this time last lap. Didn't really look like anybody's fault in particular. It's just a bit of a rub down towards this chicane, and then obviously things starting to unravel down at the Melbourne hairpin as well, as West Competition Racing's Apostle also got through. Meanwhile, Kieran Prendergast is down the inside of Verstappen, who's had a fantastic start in the Bentley as well. Although shoved out wide by the Butterfly Effect Esports McLaren, he drops down to 8th position, and he's all of a sudden under pressure from Yuke Novicius as well in the Porsche. Jeepers just in behind as well, rounding out the top 10. This is very interesting inside the top 10 at the moment. We've got a bit of side-by-side just outside of the top 10 as well. Yuri Valek trying to take the position away from McConnell, excuse me, around the outside for the McLaren, the 125 car. Can't make things work around there by the looks of things. We'll have to stick behind just for the moment. But plenty of battles to be watching, especially inside the top 10. Though very impressive start from the Sol Bentley, starting in 10th position, excuse me, up to 7th briefly before Prendergast made that move at the Melbourne hairpin.
I had a bit of a revelation actually there. I had no idea that the RNE team red driver of Ben McConnell there in the 125, the reason of course why he's got the Traction logo on is because it's our Waggy from Traction. So yeah, that was unfortunately one of the slowest bits of puzzle, like clicking bits together, that you'll ever see in your life. But you know, it's kind of my forte, like being the last to put things together. So yeah, great to see him out there, and great to see him representing the Traction community out there tonight. But 125 left to go in this race. It feels like we've already had about 15 minutes gone of this race. We've only had 5 in a bit, but we thought George Boothby would run away with it. That gap is starting to very slowly come down, ever so slightly. In fact, not ever so slightly. That came out by about 0.4 of a second last lap. We might have a race on our hands here.
Yeah, Gregor Schill is starting to make some inroads, and he's bringing Jaroslav Honzik for the ride as well by the looks of things. 2nd and 3rd for those guys at the moment. Apostle and West Competition Racing doesn't look like he quite has it once again, unfortunately. Yeah, we saw this kind of last week. Schill got away, and Sebastian Apostle wasn't able to stick with them, really. This is Krzysztof Maskowski at the moment, trying to defend from George Caracas right now in that Volante Racing McLaren, who sends it down the inside very nearly at turn 7, but couldn't quite do it into that particular corner. It's a difficult place to make a move, to be fair to him. Couldn't quite pull it off on that occasion, as Maskowski brings that gap down to the 31 BMW to just under 1 second. He's starting to pull Caracas away from Prendergast at the moment as well. So gaps are starting to form. You expect to see this as we're nearing 10 minutes completion in this race, but it doesn't alleviate any of the pressure that this Porsche is under right now. He's had a rough start to this race.
No, he's just going backwards. Watch this, he'll have about maybe 5-6 cars on his tail in about 2 laps time here. That Porsche just, it has single race pace, but it has single lap pace, but it definitely doesn't have race pace the way that it's set up right now. That Porsche there, though, of Junekovic, almost had race pace there. Tried to go around the outside of Christopher Streppen there, wasn't having any of it, and Felix Diepers there, very polite, I've got to say there, in allowing him back onto the racetrack there. Almost having a look up into Red Gate into turn 1, but thinks better of it. But also having a look at the gap between the leader and second place here. Now again, I've seen this so many times. I've got a little sneaky suspicion that Jaroslav Honzik is going to come to the pits in the lead of this race, purely because of his history of being in 3rd place behind 2 scrapping leaders, and that is what I think might happen. Given that Boothby is not increasing that gap, it's maybe stabilising. It's maybe only come down by 1 or 2 tenths, but it is still coming down. It's not going up by 3, 4, 5 tenths of a second every single lap here. So yeah, I'm very curious to see how this one develops here, Ian.
Yeah, let me add a bit of a layer to the pit stop chat as well. Just look at the top right hand side of your screen. We're expecting rain in the next 30 minutes. Didn't take us long for us to get into the UK and for it to start raining, did it? So there we are, half an hour away. The rain is coming. Thankfully for these guys, it's within the pit window. By the looks of things, it looks like it's going to hit within the pit window. But that does not make life easy whatsoever. As if life wasn't difficult enough at the moment for the 116 team. The Jody Community team of Valentin Barrier, and Krzysztof Maskowski at the moment currently running in 5th position with Grantas Caracas right behind them, and the rain is set to come in about half an hour's time.
Oh, I'm sorry, did somebody order a spicy takeaway? Because that's exactly what we've got here. 30 minutes and we're going to have a little bit of changeable weather. Well, yeah, and that certainly throws the cat amongst the pigeons here. Now, which car is going to like that? I think that's going to favour the BMW more than the McLaren, because typically the McLaren's not really fared very well with the wet weather. So we'll keep our eye on that, as I think that was Pradol in the Porsche. I think it looked like we caught him just as he had a bit of a moment there, but there's that choo-choo train of Krzysztof Maskowski right now with Caracas. Prendergast for Streppen is just behind there as well, about 2 seconds down the road. I think, yeah, he's definitely in trouble, but again, that gap is stabilising very, very slightly here. So I think a lot of these drivers are going to be very, very keen to get their first stint out of the way.
Yeah, they are. It's well, we'll see when they can afford to come in and make it to the end of the race, really. Where, by my reckoning, you probably come in with an hour to go. I just don't know if we've done anything with the fuel here to change things around or not, as part of a kind of series imposed thing. I don't believe so, but you never know. So we'll see when these guys begin to come into the pit lane. You can imagine they're not going to do so before the rain hits at this rate. Is it going to stay with us until the end, though? That's the big question. It could change things around quite a lot as well, as we see a bit of a replay here of what went on to the Reiter Engineering Porsche down the inside for the sole Ferrari in the race. It's a bit of side-by-side racing, a slight bit of contact and not much grip out there on the grass either. By the looks of things, held it together, did Prodo, but yeah, just one of those racing incidents really. A slight bit of contact and unfortunately been forced out wide in that Porsche.
Yeah, it's a bit of an awkward one, is it? The contact model in ACC is notorious for being absolutely unforgiving. If you get this slightest bit of contact, then yeah, you're going to be in for a bad time. I noticed there that Shell had a bit of a moment there, going down to about 3 seconds behind their race leader, managed to start stretching that gap a little bit, and Honzig now dropped back to 0.5 of a second as Maskowski is trying to hold on desperately. And look at how much that 14 McLaren is trying to fight past. That Porsche is going to show him to the grass every single day of the week here. Yeah, I'm feeling a bit bad for that Porsche, because, you know, what else can you do? It's literally a mobile double-decker bus at this point here. It's going backwards. It's just a case of when.
Yeah, I especially feel for Maskowski here, because he's been hoisted into this car after not qualifying. Barrier did the qualifying, and all of a sudden he's got his teammate to start the race, and everybody around him is kind of into the rhythm at the moment after doing qualifying, fresh into it, flying into the race. Maskowski kind of got to get himself up to speed with cars around him very quickly. Let's not forget he started from second as well, which is not an easy place to start from, out on the outside line into the first corner. So I especially feel for him, because obviously he's just been put into this, dropped almost from a helicopter into this situation, and he's got to deal with it now. But I would say always, as a team perspective, I was planning it, I would always get the qualifying driver to start the race, so this exact situation doesn't really happen.
And that's it. You can see now as Prendergast trying to make some fruit out of this as well, as the Porsche moves to the right hand side to try and block the corner there, and then moves back under braking there. There's one McLaren trying to make a move on another then, so Junikovic tries to, that's Verstappen trying to make a move on Prendergast, can't quite make that happen there, and this Porsche is just backing these McLarens up into the likes of Junikovic, Deeper's in there as well, Seedor is going to get brought into the mix. the frustration is going to come out very, very quickly here, as you see Jiri Felix under pressure from Ben McConnell there in the number 125 machine. But as I was saying, Caracas is going to start getting frustrated at Mikowski. He's for me, there's a bit too many moves. I'm sure it's all within the all above board and all that sort of stuff. But the thing is when you look at it, it's deliberate move over to block it. And yes, there's defensive driving, but when they're that close, it's starting to get a little bit ragged, and you can see that Porsche he's relying on the other driver to back out, and a little bit of contact there again. I'm not liking this at all, and this is going to end up in tears, and I've got a horrible feeling it's going to be tears for the Porsche driver.
It's a few rubs starting to get into things now. The McLaren using a bit of slipstream and straight line speed as well to get onto the outside line into the chicane. Going to back off on the way in and maybe get the run out, as it did one lap ago, but nowhere near close enough on this occasion. And even Prendergast is going to be looking in the butterfly effect car now down the inside. What a dive that is from Kieran Prendergast, but he's made it work. 6th position for the butterfly effect esports car. That was brave, but it was brilliant in the end, late on the brakes, and he's into 6th place briefly because Caracas is back down his inside once again into the final corner. That was unbelievable. The late braking there is like you wouldn't believe, but they both made their unlikely moves work.
That was amazing, right? Miskowski is breathing the biggest sigh of relief right now. He's got a big get out of jail free card as Caracas and Prendergast fight it out amongst themselves here. For me, Caracas, that was a bit of a slap fight, wasn't it? Because it was a bit of a cheeky move from Prendergast, opportunistic, to just send it up. He was relying on Caracas to not turn in and not cause the accident there. And Caracas was thinking, right, well, two can play that game, sunshine, up into to Goddard's, into that final corner there, as we've got a car just rejoining the track there. I think that might have been the 31 that was kicking up the dust there, Sebastian Apostle. But that Porsche, I think that respite has been short-lived, because here comes Caracas on the back end of it as we come back to George Bithby. That gap now, 2.1 seconds. So the BMW is definitely making inroads. And again, Ewan, what do you think about the wet weather? I think the BMW is going to have the upper hand over the McLaren.
It's very possible. I think more than that. I think the wet weather might not suit the McLaren. I think that would be more of a factor rather than the BMW being particularly great. But let's wait and see. Really, we've got to, of course, factor in how heavy the rain's going to be, how long it's going to stick around, and which driver is going to be in the car by that point. You know, it's basically going to be Angus Fender versus Luke Whitehead, really, rather than Boothby and Schill. So we have to factor that into it as well. But yeah, moment by moment, the BS competition car is slowly reeling in this Yas Heat car, but it's very slowly at this stage in the race. And of course, Schill has left behind Jaroslav Honzik in his attempts to chase. 2.7 seconds adrift now at the moment is the Yas Heat community car. You see that McLaren in the background there, losing a bit of pace. There he is, Jaroslav Honzik, making a return in the Yas Heat community car. And yeah, just getting left behind. We go a little bit back to Yuri Valek, who's still under pressure from the 125 McLaren. That's R&E Team Red, and Ben McConnell, who's applying the pressure at the moment. Plenty of battles going on, not least in that one for fifth that we've been focusing on all day long. But yeah, this prospect of rain is looming very large actually over everybody's heads at this stage. It's a case of looks like it's a case of when it will hit, not if. As Caracas, also a case of when, not if here, perhaps, as he goes around the outside of Maszkowski. Won't be leaving him the room on the outside, slams the door in his face once again. And the Porsche stays in front, two McLarens hounding him still.
Oh, that was a little bit tight into the final corner there from Kieran Prendergast. Prendergast getting a little bit etsy to get past there as well. And Christopher Streppen and Janekovic just a couple of seconds off of this battle. Looking at that weather, I think it's going to be significant as Caracas goes a little bit wobbly into turn one into Redgate there. That allows Prendergast to catch right back up to the tail of that one as they come through Hollywood, down through the Crater curves there. Look at how much Caracas can just stretch away there. And that Porsche is immediately on the defensive here. Again, I don't want to be the old man whinging away here, but for me, there's a very clear line between defensive driving and just straight up blocking. And I think for me, Muskowski is flirting with that line. He's not over it just yet, but he's definitely flirting with that line. If you watch his, like how many times he moves on the straight, he'll not so much on this one, but it's out of the chicane here. He'll move over to the right, then he'll move over to the left, and then usually back into the right again. It's a difficult one, and that's where the accidents are likely to happen. But this is probably the best chance now. Dive up the inside, saw that one coming. Muskowski tries to take the inside line, gets it done. The Porsche's hung out to dry, and that is going to be job done for the McLaren. Finally getting that done. The Porsche's going to try and go around the outside there, but it's not going to happen. And there we go, McLaren done, and that is 1-0 to Caracas there.
Yeah, finally able to get through after laps of trying. Nearly 5 seconds up to the car in front as well of West Competition Racing. That's a big gap to be big gap to be closing, but Caracas is going to have to start to step into that one. You see side by side between Monaf and Eraser by the looks of things. John Eraser in the Aston Martin, the sole Aston Martin, down the inside at the moment of Daniel Monaf in the McLaren. Consistent Racing Esports, but still there, heading down the Carrera curve side by side at the moment, and the Aston Martin gets in front into 15th position on the road at the moment. 20 minutes into this race here at Donington Park. It's George Boothby with 2 seconds of a lead over Gregor Schill, then Jaroslav Honzik is third, Sebastian Apostel fourth, and Grantis Caracas is in 5th position, newly crowned 5th position of course for Volante Racing. And Muskowski still defending. Kieran Prendergast is next on the list. But it was a nice move in the end from Caracas. What I have noticed, especially in that final sector, these McLarens look good on the brakes. And the likes of Prendergast and Caracas seem very good at using it.
They absolutely are. And the BMW just up in front of Sebastian Apostel, I think, is going to find that out the hard way. They're going to get hunted down. 5.5 seconds to go, so it's going to be debatable whether or not he does actually get caught. But yeah, that Porsche had no match for it. And of course it was the one time, Ewan, where I was saying about, you know, how many times the Porsche was dancing from left to right, that it didn't do any of that. It just kept over at the left hand side and almost invited Caracas to take the position there. Now the question is, how quickly can Kieran Prendergast get past as well? Because I've got no doubt he will be able to get past that Porsche as well. The other question about that rain coming on, I've got a feeling this might be some heavy rain that we're about to see in the next sort of 20 minutes, half an hour. You can see how dark it's getting. The light's starting to be visible on the reflection there. That was a huge power slide there. And there we go, the Porsche under attack there from Prendergast. Just holds on to that position there.
Very obviously getting to the inside to defend up the hill there at turn 8 and now towards the chicane. Still on the inside line. Prendergast surely he's going to break early here and get the smooth run through. He does indeed. There it is. He's going to try and get smooth run through now and get to the inside for the Melbourne hairpin. Can he get his car alongside before the Porsche comes across? He can. Muskowski gives him just enough room and just onto the grass ever so slightly. He's given a very tight line, but he sends it into the corner. Slams the door in the Porsche's face, of course, and says, I'll be taking 6th position, thank you. And he does. Prendergast up another place for Butterfly Effect Esports. That was a nice move in the end. Close racing between the two of them. Even a couple of wheels on the grass as well. But he made that one work in the end, Prendergast, and he's up to 6th place.
Oh, that was a huge moment from Jimmy Lynn there. Almost sending it into oblivion there. In fact, no, that was almost Jimmy Lynn getting sent into oblivion there, excuse me, from the 724 there. That is, of course, the writer, engineer, and esports machine of Maximilian Prudhomme. Who, yeah, that was almost an expensive accident here as we cut back to Christopher Streppen here in the Bentley just ahead of Junikovic in that Porsche here. But, you know, 67 minutes left to go and that Porsche's looking a little bit fighty for my liking on Kieran Prendergast. This isn't done, is it? You just know that it almost feels like more than a race between these two. I think it's a different... The issue that I've got is that I've always maintained the past 10 minutes that Porsche is overdriving it itself. Krzysztof Muskowski he's frustrated, he's angry, he's what we in Scotland do and call, he's absolutely raging right now. He is just furious at the fact that he's been getting bopped and battered about by people getting their way past, and he'll maybe feel a little bit aggrieved by Prendergast, clipping the nose of that car as he went past to make sure that he wouldn't get overtaken. Now, that wasn't intentional, but if you're going to say that, then you have to also look at Muskowski, again running Prendergast off onto the grass to avoid them trying to make the move there. So it's much and such, and I think unfortunately that Porsche only has itself to blame for the position that it's in at the moment, going further down. And I think the salt in the wound would be if that 38 of TJ Porca Racing, Taras Janikovic, was to get past in that fellow Porsche. I think that would really, really rub salt into the wound.
We'll see who is in that battle to become the best running Porsche at the moment. Still being held, of course, by the 116 team, Jardier Community. Currently third in this championship, of course. It was a fourth at Monza, a third at Kyalami. They were looking to increase that kind of run up to second, I suppose, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen, judging by early performances here at the moment. Could also be a thing of a difference in who's starting the car here, because if I remember rightly from the first two races, Valentin Barrier started the car on both of those occasions. I just wonder if the fact that Muskowski is starting on this occasion is maybe a little bit new to him or whatever. I'm not, obviously, might be talking complete rubbish here because I'm not entirely familiar with him as such. However, it is possible that when you've suddenly been made to start the race, when your teammate has been taking the reins for most of the start of the race, it can be a bit of a surprise. I just wonder if they're better off having Barrier start these races and Muskowski provide the leg home. But it's like a 4x1 at a relay team, isn't it? You've got to have all your people in the right position because to perform at the right level. And I'm not sure if Muskowski, if it's a good idea that he starts the race ahead of Barrier in future. I don't know. Of course, they'll have a better idea than us. But it certainly seems that Barrier starting the race at Monza and Kyalami did work quite well.
Look, I think that's a very valid point to raise there, Ewan. Of course, some drivers are better used to that frantic opening stint, and other drivers are better to do consistent, smooth lap times. I would think that you're spot on with that one. Maybe it'd be better try them in a second half stint with the cars and maybe a little bit more spread out, because with this, certainly as we said, for the past 15 minutes it feels like he's been driving on anger and a bit of emotion right now, and that's never a good mix for drivers, especially here at a track where it's incredibly close and incredibly packed racing for that first 30-40 minutes as well. So maybe that's a strategy call. Maybe we're both absolutely wrong on this one, and Muskowski is just having a bit of a time of it. But again, I look at that there. I look at the way he's exiting out that corner, the way that the power goes down a little bit too early, and the car snapping under the acceleration of it. I just wonder how long those tyres are going to last on that thing. I mean, we're still only a lot less than half an hour into the race, so it's not too bad yet, but the heat that will be in those tyres will be a little bit stressful for them, I think, and the more you push on them, the greasier and slidier they get, and the more frustrating an experience it is. But it all depends on whether or not Prendergast can get away here, because obviously now we have to look behind. There's Christopher Streppin and Janikovic, and I'm also keeping an eye on that gap there, and that is Federico Varniolo for COS Esports having. I think that's going to be the second moment for him, getting recovered back onto that track there, but he'll get away with it because he's got a fairly sizable gap to the 5:17 and 72 behind him. Yeah,
and indeed the 724 Porsche of Writer Engineering Esports also chucked up within that 4-car train, but that's Varniolo off at the old hairpin, or at least getting back on at the old hairpin. Might have been off at the Craner Curves, not entirely sure he was involved with Valek and McConnell, or whether he was on his own. I suspect it might be just a one-car incident there. Let's find out, shall we? With a replay. It's out turn 1. Slightly on the grass, but it's all right. Going down here through the right-hander at 2, the left-hander at 3. These are the Craner Curves. A little bit too far to the inside line there on the grass, and gets off the road into the gravel. As we said earlier on, thankfully, the wall's quite far away there, despite the lack of tarmac runoff. The wall is quite far away, so Varniolo gets away with that one at least for the moment. As we see now, rain only 10 minutes away. The Porsche shredding its tyres, you could say, or driving very aggressively. However, I suspect they'll be taking those tyres off before long to swap them for wet ones. So I wouldn't be too concerned personally on that team, given that prospect of a change of tyres is not too far around the corner.
Yeah, the rain obviously just moments away now, and the sky getting very, very dark here at the virtual Donington. I'm kind of excited by this, and maybe that's the chaotic inside me. I just love seeing things all going to pot for different teams, mix it up a bit, and it just adds a little bit more drama to things, doesn't it? And I think that's exactly what we're going to have here. The Porsche, I'm not sure how that's going to do in the wet. I think that's going to be another car that's going to struggle. I think the Bentley will do well. I think the BMW will do well. Oh, that was right out of nowhere for Krzysztof Mieszkowski. I could hear you holding your breath at the same time as me there, Ewan. Just a sharp inhalation of breath as Krzysztof Mieszkowski. You got the feeling that was going to be an obituary for Caracas. For Kieran Prendergast there, because that car was coming in very, very hot indeed. But thankfully, I got the brakes on here. But yeah, look, it's not going anywhere, so it's likely the rain is going to be on for the remainder of this race here. Either way, these last sort of 15 minutes for these drivers, I think, are going to be very, very sketchy indeed. Do not be surprised to see several cars off the road here in quick succession.
Yeah, let's hope not, but it could get quite grisly for everybody quite quickly. 60 minutes to go here at Donington Park. We've had half an hour, still got 2 more half hours to go, and indeed this may be even more interesting than we've seen in the opening of this race. George Booby still leading from Gregor Schill and Jaroslav Honzik at the moment, but rain is on its way. This battle for 6th is one we've been monitoring over the last few moments. Kieran Prendergast coming under fire from Krzysztof Mieszkowski, who's finally found his feet maybe in this race. Prendergast is able to pull the two of them away from Verstappen, Uknevicius and Deepers, who are all battling over 8th position right now, just behind, showing that we are picking up the pace ever so slightly in this group, especially for Mieszkowski, who's been struggling early on in this race. That is certainly a good thing. Be handing the car over to Barrier as well, who will really have a job on his hands to try and claw back some of these positions that they have missed out on over the last few laps. Going to be obviously losing points to some of those around them at the moment. Coming into today 3rd in the championship, they'll certainly be losing that to Volante, who are currently in 5th position at the moment.
Absolutely well, an hour left to go in the race. Still George Boothby though out in front, 2.5 seconds almost ahead of Gregor Schill. And again, either it's gap management at the moment, or Gregor Schill just doing an absolutely amazing job of trying to hold on to the pace. I do think though, given that Jaroslav Honzik hasn't dropped away as much as maybe we thought might happen, that might be the case there. But Jiri Valek here still onto the back end of that is, in fact, sorry, that's Jiri Valek just ahead of the 125 of Ben McConnell, excuse me. So that is the battle for 12th and 13th as we're seeing it right now. Junekovic drops down behind Felix Deepers as well now, so he loses out another position there. But yeah, I'm kind of waiting with bated breath here, because we're just waiting for that rain to start falling here at Donington. And when it does, I wouldn't be surprised to see cars coming in early to get their pit stops done and maybe look at changing some tyres, because you're going to get some heroes that try staying out, and I think it's all going to go very, very wrong for them, or potentially they could lose out quite quickly, because as short a lap here as it is, what you can find with ACC is that it rains differently in different parts of the track as well, Ewan.
Yeah, it's a real minefield to pit on the right lap. As you say though, the fact that it is a shorter lap round here means that mistakes and mistakes cost you less, and good calls gain you less as well, because those who have missed out obviously can come in a little bit sooner than they otherwise would. For example, if we had this situation, I know it's not in ACC, but the Nordschleife, then you really have made a mistake if you've gone out and it started to rain, as we all know. So yes, it's a little bit less like that in terms of a situation, but it's still a call that you have to get right. Meanwhile, by the way, I believe that Uknevicius in the 38 Porsche has had a problem somewhere. That's TJ Porker Racing. Really down in 10th position. He was applying the pressure to Christopher Streppen in that Bentley not so long ago, but now all of a sudden he's dropped off miles away to the tune of nearly 5 seconds there. And he must have made a mistake somewhere, as we see battles happening for 14th in the order right now. This is the Reiter Engineering Esports Porsche trying to get through on the last minute competition. Aston Martin into the chicane we go, as Prodo tries to make up for a poor first couple of laps where he saw himself in second last position, or I think he might have actually been dead last by 1 point, but he's clawed his way through the order quite nicely, and he's trying to get through on this Aston Martin, although he does have a 10-second penalty for his troubles. Not entirely sure what that's for, but he has got one.
He certainly has. We'll get an update on that very, very shortly, but a big battle going on further down that order then, as we see. That surely is going to be the Porsche getting the run on the Aston Martin here. They're going to go side by side, but again, that Aston can just stretch away a little bit. And look at the McLaren behind there of Monaf in that number 17 machine. He fancies having a little go at this as well. And this track temperature is dropping rapidly. Remember, at qualifying it was 23 degrees, and at the race start it was 21. Now down to 20 degrees. That is going to quickly drop even more once this water starts falling out of the sky, and we will watch that track status go from optimum to green to damp, and yeah, it's going to get very, very messy very, very quickly indeed. But again, I'm just looking at the front of the field as well as we go back to Kieran Prendergast, and that is a bump from Muskowski. That was a long time coming. And I get the feeling Race Control are going to be having words. He's going to be getting a clip here for that one, because it looks like it was just too late onto the brakes into Goddard's there, and that is an F if ever I saw one.
It looked more like a mistake than a move from Muskowski, no doubt about that, but it does mean that he may well receive a penalty for that one. Prendergast loses positions. He's down to 9th in that Butterfly Effect Esports McLaren. So that is a shame to see down here at the final corner, making that mistake and obviously spinning the car around in front at the moment. So yeah, we may well see a penalty coming their way. The barrier will be in the car at the time or not. We'll wait and see, of course, because we are approaching on pit stops, approaching on rain here as well. Looks like it's going to be possibly with us till the end of the race, or indeed late on. Let's have a look at a replay as to what has gone on here. It's late braking from the Porsche. As I say, just a mistake rather than a move, but I do get the feeling they're going to be receiving a penalty for that.
Need to get the wee bowling graphic over that. Nice shot. that was yeah. He couldn't have planned that any better. But yeah, it's accidents happen. You're going to miss your braking points. It's only going to happen even more. Ewan, have a look at that weather forecast. It's just updated just now. It's going to be very, very heavy in the next half hour. We are going to have a heck of a finish to this race, and yeah, I think that rain's going to start in the next 2-3 minutes.
It cannot be far away now. It's imminent, surely. But when do you come in for wet tyres? That's the thing. With the intensity of the rain predicted there, it does look like we are going to see wet weather tyres until the very end of this race here at Donington. We continue to look at this battle for what is 14th position in the standings. The number 5 Aston Martin defending from Maximilian Prodo, driving the Reiter Engineering Esports Porsche. Trying to maybe get down the inside into turn 1, but it's not going to happen for him, I'm afraid, on that one. And he just stays behind for now. Only 2.2 seconds in that battle for the lead as well. It stayed around there for almost this entire stint, but it remains to be seen. McLaren versus BMW in the wet weather conditions. How are they going to perform? And of course, it's going to be Luke Whitehead against Angus Fender in the wet weather conditions as well, which is a totally different prospect as well. How accustomed to the wet weather conditions are they? That is going to be answered over the next 52 minutes as well, you suspect. Oh, it's the rain
off at the park
and already off the road for one of the McLarens. It looks like...
That's it, it's raining. It's raining because the track's gone from optimum to fast, so that was Daniel Monaf off into the barriers there.
Immediately, a McLaren off into the wall. That was coming out of the 7th turn on this course, and this rain is not insignificant. Straight away, you can see even from the helicopter shots, which often mask the rain quite a lot, you can see that it is falling with quite significant severity at the moment. McConnell already into the pit lane, doesn't want any part of this at all, and you can hardly blame him at this stage. It is raining quite hard out here at the moment, and it looks like Prendergast is struggling already. Juknavicius looks like he's actually coping quite well in the Porsche.
Certainly is. I'm just watching down to our race leader in second place. That gap coming down very, very significantly there. We'll keep an eye on that one. I think that's down to under 2 seconds now. I think Boothby might have locked up going into the hairpin there. So obviously we're seeing the McLaren struggling a little bit more with this wet weather right now, but the BMW getting a poor exit out of Goddard's here. Here comes the Porsche onto the back then. That is Tobias Junikovic onto the back of Kieran Prendergast, and that's a poor exit for Felix Deeperds, who is going very, very wide, has to give up the racing room. Track condition now greasy, which means the cars are going to slip and slide all over the track here, and it's only going to deteriorate. I think it's safe to say that this is now going to be, the remainder of this race is going to be a wet race here, and that's going to be a Porsche trying to go around the outside of a BMW. That's never going to work. And Krzysztof Muskowski into pit lane here, Ewan.
Yep, Muskowski in for Barrier. It's going to be a driver swap for those guys, you would expect, as we're flying into the first turn. Juknavicius gets through on Deepers once more. So that BMW is struggling, and the BMW of Gregor Schill struggling as well. The gap to 3 seconds out at the moment. Sebastian Aposto also coming under pressure from Caracas. So in these early moments, the BMWs are falling backwards at the moment. GB Lin also was involved with that battle for now 13th position, headed by Jean Aracer, but now he is not involved at all. 2 seconds down. So these BMWs are not getting off to a great start in these weather conditions. Is that going to change as they put on the wet tyres, or are they really struggling as the rain falls?
I can't say that it is. I wasn't expecting this. I mean, I know obviously you can get difference between dry and wet setups, but I wasn't expecting it to be this dramatic area, and that's quite a lot. And George Boothby and Gregor Schill into pit lane then, so the pair of them had enough. And what a move by Aracer! Just absolutely did that Aston Martin like it was standing still.
Yeah, mistake there, I'm afraid, from the Aston Martin, and falling down the order slightly. So the Reiter Engineering car gets through, indeed, the top 5 in the pit lane. You get the feeling this is the time to come in. The track, according to the game, is damp at the moment. It's going to get a lot worse than that, you would expect. Boothby in, so is Schill, Honzik, Apostel, Caracas, Verstappen. Juknavicius decides to carry on in the Porsche. There he goes. Carries on one more time. But we're going to get driver changes here. Luke Whitehead is going to leave the pit lane at first of everybody in here, you'd imagine, unless something goes wrong. Oh no, the BMW of Angus Fender gets into the car and makes up a 3-second margin in the pit stop. That is a remarkable pit stop from BS Competition. They now take the net race lead.
That is absolutely huge, and we cannot understate just how important that is. For the Porsche of Junikovic, it's a bold try. I think it's going to be a horrible experience for them trying to navigate this damp sun track. In fact, let's go on board then with a couple of corners here. So up into that right hander. Look at how little grip there is, having to fight the wheel, trying to get any traction down. There's no hope of getting any power down to those wheels whatsoever coming round through Coppice. This is down into Starkey Straight. This is where the water pools onto the braking area, exactly where you don't want it to, over the curbs. You're a brave lad trying to do that there, but Taras Junikovic then for TJ Porker Racing down into the Melbourne hairpin there. Again, the water gathers there and straight off. That's exactly what happens there. You go deep into the corner, cut the car back. He has to come in this lap because you're going to see him losing hand over fist. The amount of time that he is going to lose is going to be absolutely incredible if he stays out.
Yeah, he's already realised that it's time to come in, so Juknavicius is into the pit lane as we see Fender versus Whitehead at the front of this field for the win here in this race. And the Mikko Statsenko trying to follow them through and trying to close in on them. Nikolai is going to be defending from Jonathan Riley here, just over 4th position for West Competition Racing. Antibarrier has made a good call there by coming in early. Or his teammate, anyway, has. Moskowski made a good call by coming in early. And so they're in 7th. Now a few seconds ahead of Ulrich in 8th. Johansson is 9th ahead of Fischer in the butterfly effect car. So those gaps in the midfield have extended out. But thankfully for us, we've got a race-leading battle going on between Angus Fender and Luke Whitehead. BMW versus McLaren. PS Competition versus GTWR Yas Heat. It's going to be a fantastic fight. Hopefully it goes right down till the very end of this race. And can Statsenko bring this gap down enough to get involved as well? Lap traffic is here right now as well as we speak. Donington is not a long circuit, and so lap cars are going to be a factor during this battle as well, but getting out the way nicely so far.
Yeah, they certainly are, but I've got to be honest, the McLaren's looking lovely in this early wet weather running, aren't they? They look like they've really got the number on both the Porsches and the BMWs right now. I wouldn't put it past Luke Whitehead going for the lead again here.
He's got to be putting on the pressure soon, and that's exactly what he's trying to do as we speak right now into the final corner. The BMW kind of triangling it off, if you like, by diving for that first apex and then getting the last one as well, just to maximise the run onto the front straight. We've got yellow flag somewhere out there.
It's the 199 of Noah Sully Vasquez Rodriguez there, bringing out the yellow flag at Coppice.
Bit of a mistake, I'm afraid, and drops down a couple of places, down to 13th. I'm afraid now for that car. But at least back onto the road at the moment. We still see Fender and Whitehead 1 and 2 right now. We're halfway through this race, 45 minutes and less to go right now. It's going to be wet until the end. It's going to get worse than this as well. This is only light rain at the moment. We're going to get into proper rain in a few moments' time, and that is going to make these conditions even trickier for everybody at this stage. Not only in that leading battle, but the ones a little bit further down as well, as we see this Porsche of Sauneskas currently at the moment in 8th place, trying to defend from the 99 BMW. Battles going on up and down the top 10 at the moment.
It certainly is, and I'm looking at the weather, and as you said, going to be deteriorating even more. I'm trying to think of how to relate this to our viewers here. So at the moment, this is a heavy drizzle at the moment compared to what we're going to get. Next up I think is Cagoule weather, and then 30 minutes time, it's going to be like a plastic bag over the head kind of weather. That's how intense it's going to be. You're going to be wanting to get some shelter here. At Bentley, actually, we do have a Bentley that might be able to get some points turning into a Boatley, so we'll keep an eye on the 991 of Ulrich. Traditionally, that car has done very, very well in wet weather, but it looks like the 724 Holt's getting a drive-through penalty, and I imagine that's going to be for track limits.
It must be, I suppose, yeah. It's a shame to see for the 724. They had a 10-second penalty, of course, to serve not so long ago, which is a real shame for them, but here are the battles. 8th place, that Porsche, oh, it gets turned around by Fischer, by the looks of things. We saw earlier on in that 200 car, it was Kieran Prendergast, excuse me, driving that car. Kurt Fischer now at the wheel, and I'm afraid he's turned around at 38 Porsche. It was struggling, but through the final corner, that was a mistake. And there may be a penalty coming their way as well in the McLaren. I know they were turned around in a not dissimilar incident earlier on by a Porsche, almost getting their revenge. I know it wasn't intentional, but yes, a turning around there, and here is how it happened.
Yeah, let's have a look here. I think it's going to be a case of just late onto the... Well, it can't be late onto the brakes there, but it is a little bit, and then he tries to get the accelerator round. Yeah, he's just been caught out, that's all it is, so they had nowhere to go. The car in front of him's obviously braked or something, and he's just went straight into the back of him. I think it's fairly clear cut what's going to happen to that car, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see as Holtz comes in for his drive-through. It's an unfortunate thing to see from Fischer, but yeah, we'll keep an eye on what happens with that one. Interested to see that gap not coming down with Statsenko, so he's still 5.5 seconds behind that battle between Fender and Whitehead. But more importantly, Fender not looking like he's coming under any increased pressure from Whitehead below now. So I wonder if that early advantage for the McLaren's starting to wear off maybe a little bit here, as we see Ed Haskell trying to fight Holtz as he just comes out of pit. In fact, no, that's let's have a look who that is up the inside. Anyway, that's
the leaders, I think.
yeah. Sorry,
No.
that's exactly who it was.
Sorry.
Haskell in the burgundy coloured car, obviously. And
Oh, he loses it. And, oh, on the wet grass as well. Just about somehow keeps things pointing in the right direction. But he loses a lot of time, and he does lose that place to Holtz. They weren't exactly, well, I suppose they are leaders, but not the actual leader. This is West Competition Racing and Volante Racing battling out over 4th position. Not what you want to see as one of the leading cars. Actually, a battling pair of back markers, but that's exactly what Victor Nicolai and Jonathan Riley had to negotiate a couple of moments ago in this battle over 4th place. This BMW coming under a lot of pressure in this opening part of this stint. 16 seconds up to the car in front. That gap's only growing. The gap behind only getting smaller as well. Riley really applying the pressure now.
yeah, that's a very, very good point there. Just seeing the way that the cars have all split into little battles here. I was a little bit distracted there by Otaku Glock there on Twitch, pointing out the rather obvious term of any suggestible young people listening don't put a plastic bag on your head,
Yes.
even if commentator says it's okay. Well, for avoidance of doubt, that was a euphemism to explain how anybody that's considering putting a plastic bag on your head, I'd be a little bit worried about. Yeah, there's going to be some issues there if you try that one. So put the plastic bag down, put a cup of tea on instead, and just sit down, because yeah, that's you're in for bad times.
Yes.
I don't know how we bring the conversation back from
No.
that one. You know, I'll be quite
No.
honest with you right there.
I love how you say young people as well, as if there are not adults that would exactly do that. But anyway, we'll not go there. Meanwhile, battle for 4th going on. Victor Nicolai under a lot of pressure, as I said a little bit earlier on. Jonathan Riley applying it right now. And speaking of applying pressure, Gert Fischer doing that as well to another BMW. They're really struggling out here at the moment by the looks of things. This time it's the 99 at BMW. That's his Lutz Motorsports, and Till Jurison right now. Almost a dive at turn 7 there from Fischer, which would have been brave, but decided to back out of that one. It's quite brave in dry conditions, to be honest. Never mind right now.
Do you think Gerd Fischer just wants to hit anything in sight? Because it's in the space of like 2 laps. That's been, what was it, a Porsche, and now it's a BMW that he's got in his sights as well. Yeah, that's it's an interesting strategy. It's certainly one way of climbing up the order, I guess. But yeah, it just shows how wet and slippy the conditions are, and how reactive you've got to be to the car in front as well. Because you can drive to your own pace, but you've also got to react to the car in front as well. That's the big issue here. But you know, we're 40 minutes left to go in the race, and unfortunately, I think we're going to see the order being quite static here, because I can't see there being any massive overtaking opportunities here, barring drivers or cars that are having accidents or incidents.
Yeah, absolutely. Not too many of those out at the moment, it has to be said. A number of battles going on. Obviously, the battle for first starts settling down over the last couple of moments. The battle for 4th going on. We've been watching. This is for 8th. In the main part of your screen, in the bottom right-hand side, you can see the battle for 12th place at the moment. That's Hulleman versus Rodriguez. 199 McLaren having had a spin a couple of moments ago. And they are the battles out there at the moment. 4 pairs of cars all battling out there on the racetrack right now. A bit more lappery going on as Guido Zito gets out the way of the 2 leaders. Angus Fender at the moment keeping Luke Whitehead at arm's length. And considering how all the other BMWs in the field, almost all of them anyway, are under pressure, and Haskell's having trouble keeping it on the road at times here at the moment, and just doing a very good job at the moment to keep this gap at 1 second now for the first time.
Yeah, it really is. And again, that gap going up very, very slightly. So again, it brings it into how huge, Ewan, was that pit stop? How crucial was it for them to get that jump over that car in front? Absolutely sensational, and I think they will be properly delighted with that.
And it certainly will be. Absolutely vital pit stop. But my question is, how? How did they do that? Because they were nearly nearly 3 seconds behind going in. Schill couldn't make any inroads into Boothby's lead, even when the rain came down. And then all of a sudden they came out just with their noses in front. So how on earth did they manage to save 3 seconds of a pit stop? Because the Jardier community, well, not Jardier's car, which is confusingly a Yas Heat community car, but anyway, they lost a few seconds in the pit stops as well in relation to the BMW, but their pit stop time in relation to the 75 was absolutely normal. So with regards to, it wasn't the Yas Heat car losing time in the pit stops, it was the BMW gaining 3 seconds, but that's a big margin to be gaining in just one pit stop.
It really, really is, and it just shows you how important it is to be able to make moves like that. I mean, they've possibly won this race with that pit stop, and to do that, that's absolutely inspired. Look, they're definitely not going to care, are they? They're going to absolutely take that a win as a win, but equally they're going to be devastated in that 75 camp of Yas Heat GTWR that it kind of went that way, if that makes sense. And obviously it's not over yet, but the signs are there. That Luke Whitehead car is not catching. It's going backwards now.
It is 1.4, 1.5 edging on at the moment. We look at this battle for 12th. This is all McLaren battle. Involving one of the Volante cars. I think this is the 199. It is indeed. Came into today 5th in the championship, outside the top 10 at the moment. 13th in the order, applying the pressure to the McLaren. They're really going to need to get up the order over the next few moments. But speaking of points and whatever, BS Competition going to be gaining a maximum if the race was to end right now for the second week in a row. They're becoming a force to be reckoned with in this championship season. Came in with a 17-point advantage over the Yas Heat GTWR car. Going to be leaving with an even bigger advantage at this stage as they control this race right now. And Valentin Barrier looks like he's going to be trying to control that Bentley just behind. He's got a few seconds. Oh, well, I say that. He's got 12 seconds. It's one of the lap cars, the Reiter Engineering Porsche by the looks of things, who he's got behind him at the moment. But yeah, BS Competition in control of this championship, arguably, at the moment. Early on, 3 rounds in, but nice lead by the looks of things at the moment.
Certainly is. As we go back to Victor Nicolai here on the defence here from Riley in that number 14 machine. The other thing as well is look at Valentin Barrier trying to recover in that 116. I mean, we were thinking they might be challengers for the lead of this race, and it has just all gone to pot for them. That first stint really didn't do them any favours whatsoever, but thankfully they've got a 12-second gap over Ulrich behind them in the Bentley there, so it looks like they should be okay. But with the conditions getting worse and worse and worse over the remainder of the race here, again, these cars are going to have their limits, and the track, the track times, they're going to come tumbling down. And again, it's a question of who that favours. And what I'm thinking now is the weather gets worse and the rain gets more and more, as we see Sinidis with a drive-through. I think McLarens are done. I think that the pace that they had in that early stage of the damp weather, I think that's gone, and now they are falling backwards quite quickly compared to the BMWs.
I think it's a strange situation at the moment. I feel like it may boil down to more than just what car you're driving at this stage, because the BMW of Angus Fender at the moment is putting time into Whitehead and Statsenko in the top 3, but this BMW of Victor Nicolai is struggling to hold on from Jonathan Riley at the moment in the McLaren. So roles are reversed in this battle for 4th. I think it may boil down to a little bit more than manufacturer choice. May, of course, boil down to a little bit of setup choice as well. Dry versus wet weather setup. Of course, you would qualify and done the first half of the race in the dry, and then the second half of the race comes in the wet, which makes things very different. So I feel like a number of factors are going to come into play here. But kind of just on this in terms of weather, at the start of today, I'm not sure how much actual pre-warning these guys will have had that it is wet or is going to be wet here throughout the second half of this race. I'm not sure if that's a total surprise to them as they've gone on with this race and gotten it within half an hour of the rain, like we see on the broadcast, or whether they have a bit more warning. Maybe they can change their setup a little bit beforehand. But either way, it may boil down to a little bit of that as well.
It very, very well could. I think these are all going to be questions for the post-race interviews. I know you're going to have quite a lot of fun chatting to the drivers after the race here. But I'm looking at the performances here, and apart from a few spins or a few bumps here and there, another remarkable night of very, very clean racing here. Very, very well behaved driving, and these drivers kind of holding their reputation up very, very well, I think, tonight.
It's been good so far. Still half an hour of racing to go here at Donington Park, the third round of the GT Omega Challenger Cup. And this battle, the most recent, of course, is for 10th. Two Porsches battling over this one. TJ Porco Racing trying to hold off the number 70 of Riser Esports, down towards the Melbourne hairpin at the moment for the last spot inside the top 10. Some of these cars in and around them are indeed lap cars. That's the 72 BMW just behind. I believe the 17 McLaren just up in front of Beerhoff right now, struggling a little bit. We have lost one car from the race here today. The sole Ferrari, Team Kamikaze, I'm afraid, of Craig Hamilton, Harley Smith, out of this race already, which is a shame. So we are on 18 cars here today, and of course a non-starter, the Audi of Lipa Esports, didn't start this race either, which is a shame for them, but hopefully both will be back in 2 weeks' time when we go racing at Spa. But meanwhile, we get on board with one of the Volante racing cars, the better performing of the two. Currently Jonathan Riley at the helm, applying the pressure to the BMW of Victor Nicolai. This has been the case for the last 15 minutes or so. Riley really hasn't been able to get anywhere. For the first time, he's forced Nicolai to go a little bit defensive, and that is quite a symbolic moment, really. He's finally applying enough pressure to make the 31 just look in the mirrors a little bit and start taking a few defensive lines, start really showing the nose in a couple of these corners as well.
It is, but he's not going to be able to make advantage of that. As long as that BMW is planted right on the apex of that corner, it's going to make it very difficult for Jonathan Riley to actually do anything with it. And you get a real sense now of just how wet it is out there at Donington this evening. It really, really is absolutely hammering it down there, and a lot of surface water. Again, it has to come down to 3,000 IQ thinking there from Jonathan Riley to get past Victor Nicolai. Meanwhile, we cut back to this battle here for RNE Endurance. Then this is the battle for 11th place there, as Robin Hulaman tried to go round the inside, round the outside of that number 70 up in front of him. That's Riser Esports Wojtek Dvorak at the moment, and into Goddard's again is just going to be a case of waiting patiently and trying to force the issue here. Meanwhile, that gap at the lead, Angus Fender doing the fastest lap of the race there. I'm presuming that's the fastest lap of the race from earlier on, because there's no way he set the fastest lap in these conditions here. I know he's good, but he's not that good. Luke Whitehead though, 2.1 seconds, and it's opening up even more. So those McLarens, I think, stick a cork in them. They are absolutely done, and 28 minutes left to go. Oh, and that's a big moment from Hulaman there. From Noah Sully Vasquez Rodriguez there. And, well, like, that is so easy to happen, and that will not be the last time we see that right now. But puts him right into the firing line of Angus Fender here. And look at how much these cars are struggling to get stopped here. This is starting to get very, very messy. Luke Whitehead now 3 seconds behind your race leader.
Yeah, it's quite a big margin now. And it's still continuing to increase. Even Statsenko is starting to reel in Whitehead ever so slightly. But yeah, Rodriguez there with a big mistake down the corner curves. Easy to do in the wet weather conditions anyway, as the road dips downwards. Loses 10 seconds in that one, I'm afraid, and he's not exactly in the clutches of the Aston Martin behind, but he will have lost some time. And he's going to do well to finish any higher than 13th from this position now. As we look at one of the fellow McLarens, Jonathan Riley still applying the pressure to Victor Nicolai. Nicolai is losing time to Statsenko up front. The gap was about 15 seconds at the start of this stint 20 minutes ago. It's coming out to nearly 20 as we get a look at the replay of the incident for Rodriguez. On board, this is going to be scary. Spray, you can't really see where you're going. Just touches that curb, bounces across there, saves it, goes into the gravel. But he's still going, most importantly. Not a lot he really could have done there. It's just a lack of visibility, a lack of grip, and unfortunately went around.
Yeah, it's too much of that curb on the inside, isn't it? That's exactly what happens when you're coming through at the best of times. It could be a daunting corner, as we were saying on the build-up to the race itself. As the McLaren sent up the inside, that's not going to work, but it shows the tenacity of Jonathan Riley. He really wants to get this position from Victor Nicolai, and he wants to take that 4th position from the West Competition Racing Machine. This is the run down to turn 1, then Redgate, then 25 minutes left to go here, Ewan. And yeah, I've really enjoyed this race. This has been probably one of the like, absolute memorable races so far in this championship. I know we've only had 3, but I think we're going to have some special races to eclipse this. The drama that we've had, the excitement with the rain. Thankfully, it looks like it's going to start easing off slightly towards the end of the race, but still, I mean, that's a lot of surface water down there. The gap back up to 3 seconds with Luke Whitehead. Statsenko again looking static almost in that 3rd position. So I think the positions are kind of going to stay as they are.
On the podium, certainly inside the top 5, there is still a little bit of room for movement. With West Competition Racing and Volante Racing, both of these teams will be trying to grab points, of course. 7 up for grabs in this battle. Nice run through there from Riley, and Nicolai forced to go defensive, possibly the best overtaking opportunity so far for Jonathan Riley, who breaks early because he knows Nicolai's going to go sailing into the Melbourne hairpin. And so, nicely through, Riley takes a better line and through, and the penultimate corner of the circuit. The McLaren makes its way through on the BMW. Volante Racing up to 4th. That was made fairly easy in the end as Nicolai went far too late on the brakes. And in the end, Riley, all he had to do was stick on the racing line.
Yeah, brilliant move there. And Valentin Barry getting a 1-1 in the 116, getting a drive-through penalty. Again, that's going to be track limits. My goodness me, right at the end of the race there. That almost certainly puts them, you would imagine, out of the top 10.
Well, let's see. He's serving that drive-through at the moment. The 991 and the 200 are battling over 7th right now, but it's going to become a battle for 6th. They just go through, and there they are. Martin Ulrich defends from Gert Fischer, and I feel like we might see Barry joining them, because he's not too far behind at all. He really isn't far behind. The 99, not too far away from the 116 as well, so we've got some nice battles now just outside the top 5. As that battle for 4th begins to die away, the battles outside of it start to heat up. Martin Ulrich coming under a lot of pressure now from Gert Fischer, who's trying to recover, of course, after this car got spun around by the 116 earlier on in the race. So these two look like they're going to meet again by the looks of things.
Well, let's keep an eye on it anyway, but this is a brilliant little battle, isn't it, with Fischer, who is, I think, bumped anything that he can get his hands on today in that McLaren. Maybe inadvertently, but it's been quite a lot of contact with the front bumper of that car against Martin Ulrich for P2 Sim Sport. Again, the Bentley, I was expecting the Bentley to do much better in terms of pace, but in all fairness, I mean, 6th place is not bad for that 991 machine, but it just doesn't seem to have the ability. And in fact, the front of that Bentley kind of sums its day up right now. It's a giant sad face on the front of that Bentley if you look at it, Ewan.
You could look at it that way, yeah, I suppose. Especially with the kind of yellow highlights on this livery. Makes it look especially sad, actually.
It's an actual sad face on that Bentley, I swear.
Just colourfully sad, unfortunately. So, no, there we are. But yeah, this would be their best result of the season so far, by the way. Their best so far, as of right now, is 7th at Kyalami. but could improve if he manages to hold on here at Donington. Still got 22 minutes to do that. We look at Riley, who's getting away now in this fourth Volante race. It looked like they've consolidated that fourth place now. So a third, a fifth and a fourth on the cards for this team that came into today in the fourth place, but with the Jardier community car falling away a little bit. Looks like this, that's Valentin Barrier's car, by the way. Looks like this car is going to be moving up to third place in this championship right now as we go back to the closest battle out on the 13. Martin Ulrich getting his hands full here, and he's going to have another car for company very soon. Valentin Barrier in the background as we look back here into the distance for that Porsche. It's certainly there. There it is, getting involved with this fight for sixth position.
20 minutes left to go though. How is this going to pan out? This is so fascinating right now. He's up the inside, tries to go Fisher. He looks like he might have the run, but it's not going to happen. The Bentley gets a poor bit of traction out of that corner there. Surely the McLaren's going to fight up the inside. The Bentley thinks better of it. And who's that in the background? None other than Valentin Barrier. Fancying that back is Justin Solankas. That is a fight with Dvorak, isn't it? That he's fighting down there in the number 70. So
Yep.
the two of them taking bells out of each other, and I think Solankas has just lost that position into Dvorak.
Oh, the 991. Oh, Ulrich's off. Ulrich off at turn one, I'm afraid. Deary me, in that battle for sixth position. She was hounding him, and I'm afraid, excuse me, the pressure, or indeed, there may have been some contact, but the pressure may indeed have just become too much for that Bentley.
Oh no.
And Martin Ulrich drops down to ninth for P2 Sim Sport. A real shame to see. Might even have
do we
Dvorak.
think that number 200's been at it again? Do we think Fisher has had... It's like a game of hungry hippos. He's just trying to eat up whatever car that he can get his hands on. Well, I'm sure we'll get a replay of that in a couple of minutes time, but we'll get a replay now. I've got a horrible feeling that McLaren might be involved. It's certainly down the start-finish straight here. It's going to be on the entry to Redgate then, and yeah. There you go. Bob.
Mistake, yeah.
How many times is that car going to get away with that mistake? That is, once is a mistake, I would say, Ewan. Twice, yeah. 3 times, nah. You're taking liberties there, I'm afraid. And Martin Ulrich, I think, would be very understandable to feel aggrieved. I say this, of course, as a completely untalented sim racer who has no experience of driving in the wet whatsoever, because I can't get Assetto Corsa Competizione to run properly on my VR headset anyway, so I have to stick to less taxing games like iRacing and Assetto Corsa. So yeah, I sit here saying things about others that I can possibly do myself, but then hey, I think if we could do it, we would be up here competing ourselves.
That is true. To be honest, I don't remember them being involved 3 times. I think we're being a bit harsh on Gert Fischer here. I do remember him getting into the back of a Porsche. It was either the 70 or the 38. I can't remember which. But it was certainly one of them. It might have been the 38. And obviously we've just seen the one there into turn 1. But I don't remember a third. They did get... Kieran Prendergast got hit around by...
Right.
Excuse me?
No, I'm just saying I think you might be right on that. I think maybe it was actually only the 2. So he's just within that boundary of on the side of caution there.
I do think we've been a bit harsh on him. So we'll but anyway, either way, he's up to 6th for the moment. We'll see what the stewards have to say about it. Of course, they've got a lot to sift through throughout this race. There's been a lot going on, but they were on the receiving end of a very similar thing actually with Maskowski, who got into the back of Kieran Prendergast at the final corner. That was in the dry weather conditions, of course. And those 2 cars anyway look like they're going to meet again in that battle for 6th position. Only 1.6 between them, only 2 seconds between the leaders. Luke Whitehead has at least stopped the bleeding here. He was losing time. Now he's at least not losing it anymore. He's got to work on trying to bring this margin back down again, although Angus Fender very well be just controlling the margin at this stage rather than trying to push it out any further.
See, I'm never a fan of that, because it's like, knowing how fast Luke Whitehead is, can you afford to manage the gap like that. It does look like Luke has got just a lot more confidence firing it into the corners now. Maybe the track isn't getting any worse right now, but that BMW does look like it's struggling a little bit here. It gets a better exit and some better traction out the corner, but we'll see as he goes across the line here. The gap was 2 seconds, now 1.8. That's now the closest I think it's been for about 10 laps here. So Whitehead on a bit of a charge here.
He is just a little bit. Are we going to see a battle for the lead here between BS Competition and GTWR Yassi? It would be the difference. It'd be a 30-point swing between the two. Let's not forget there's 15 points between first and second in terms of their tallies, and Yassi already come in with a deficit. The 30-point swing would actually give them the lead. It wouldn't quite give them the lead, but it would bring them to 2 points behind, which is indeed very close. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch now who can indeed come out on top in this one. Whitehead a little bit wide through turn 8, but he's keeping the pace up at this stage with just under 16 minutes to go here in this race, down towards the final sector. And that singular mistake has put the gap out to 2.2 seconds once more. So this is going to continue for the remaining quarter of an hour, I get the feeling, because there's going to be mistakes from the two of them. There's going to be ebbs and flows. That gap is going to fluctuate quite dramatically, actually, throughout the last 15 minutes, you'd think.
Yeah, you definitely would, given the amount of pressure on the two of them, for them to be in the lead of the championship as well between them. Yeah, it's awesome to see. And listen, I think obviously at the start of this race, I don't think either of us could have predicted this is what we were going to see, because the races by comparison so far this season haven't been anywhere near as dramatic as what we've seen here tonight, and this could be a pivotal moment for the championship.
There's been a lot of drama tonight, a lot of things going on indeed. As we see Zito getting out of the way of, I think that is Whitehead, is it? Not sure, one of the McLarens. No, it was Statsenko, who is making his way down the inside into turn 1. Now, Donington Park, of course, David, in England, in the Midlands, about 20 minutes from where I grew up, so I know it very well. About 5 hours from Scotland, but I've heard in Scotland you have many different names for the weather, for rain, hundreds even. So give us a description in Scottish. What on earth is this? Because I would just call it rain, but I feel like you lot are more sophisticated with your rain.
No, I think it's more that we're used to having the rain up here.
Yeah, well,
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Sophisticated in Scots doesn't really go hand in hand. It's a bit of an oxymoron, but yeah, okay. So different words for it being absolutely pouring rain. I think a suitable word for this is that it's just absolutely dreich. It's a thoroughly dreich day out there. It means miserable, horrible. It's dark. It's gloomy. It's wet. And it's just one of those days where you want to get inside instead and get in front of a fire, and that is what it looks like. We've got many other words, and almost all of them completely unbroadcastable at this time on the GTA Mega Twitch channel. And I can imagine our Scottish producers are chuckling away to themselves, knowing exactly what words I'm thinking about there. But we'll definitely not be using them for the sanity of our stream viewers as well. But yeah, dreich I think is the best way to sum up the track out there just now. The other thing as well, though, Ewan, is that, I mean, if we can maybe even cut to an on board of any one of these cars, actually, it looks very different. I mean, you get the visibility here, you can see the track quite clearly, but the problem is when you're on the car itself. Now, just watch how we've seen it when the car goes down on a dry line. Right? The car just looks solid; it's going one direction. That's it. But you're seeing all these little micro movements that you don't really get to see from that aerial shot there. How many little twists and turns of the steering wheel that the driver is actually having to do. It's an exhausting experience driving in the wet here, because you're micromanaging the car. You're having to kind of second guess. And the wonderful thing about ACC, and the only other game that I've seen that's like this is Project Cars 2, that has that ability to actively create dynamic puddles on the track that react with the cars. The track reacts differently at every single lap. So every single lap, and I know this sounds like such a cliche, and I'm sure you hear it all the time, but it is a voyage of discovery, because the drivers are using all of their senses. They're using their force feedback to feel where the grip is. They're looking at the road as well, because what you were seeing there is you were seeing shiny patches and you were seeing dull patches. The driver's going to be wanting to stick to those dull patches, because that's the bit where there's less water and more grip by nature on the track. The problem is, if they get too much more speed, they're going to end up being naturally drawn towards the curbs. What happens when you hit the curbs? Well, you over-rotate the tyres and you tend to be off into the grass. But I think we've stabilised. I think we're now at a point where the track isn't getting any wetter. The rain is still just as heavy, and I think this is going to be it for the remainder of the race. So for me, I think that barring a mistake here, Angus Fender are looking in a very, very strong position right now.
Certainly is. There's obviously a lot that can go wrong, as we've just described, through a wet weather race, of course, and there's a lot of traffic as well, which is going to come into effect. But he is in control of this one right now. One thing we haven't mentioned really too much at all throughout this is because you don't really get to see it from these shots, but from the onboard shots that we just had, obviously you see all the movements of the car, of course, but you also see how little you can see, if you like, from an onboard of one of these, especially when you're following in another car. Now, 1.8 seconds at the moment from Luke Whitehead to Angus Fender, so it's not a big factor right now. But if indeed we get a leading battle coming up here soon, and indeed when we get lap traffic, which Angus Fender is approaching on right now in the form of the 125 of Hulleman, spray is going to be a problem, and visibility is going to be a problem.
That was going to be a point I was going to raise, actually, but then when we went on board I saw it was actually fairly clear, but it's going to be a big issue. You can see it now, the spray getting kicked up, and that is pushing water onto the window of the car behind of Angus Fender here. Now, as those two cars in front are fighting, that is the 89 in front, that is, the 89 that is up in front of them. Sorry, no, I'm reading the wrong tag there, haven't I? We're on board with Luke Whitehead there, sorry. So there we go, that's a back marker getting thrown by there. And the thing is that because that car was held up very slightly, that's brought Luke Whitehead 1.6 seconds now behind Angus Fender. But you can see again, the closer he gets, the more difficult it gets to see. You see just a cloud of water getting thrown up, and Ewan, I think that's proved your point absolutely spectacularly. It's worked out quite well. We'll see a little replay here then, shall we? Off the road for one of the McLarens. Trying to let some people through here. Oh dear, and that's the 72. Trying to head its way around the outside, but wasn't quite able to. Was that the 17 McLaren maybe? Running a little bit further down the order. Hoff and Haskell not too far away from each other on the road, so I wonder whether it was indeed one of those two, or indeed who it was. But anyway, back on the road now. Everybody is back running in the right direction, thankfully, and they can all continue on. But only 1.2 now for the lead. Whitehead really having a resurgence late on in this race here. 8 minutes to go, and Angus Fender is going to have quite a long 8 minutes by the looks of things. It's going to be a very difficult time of things indeed as well. I believe 5 to go, including this one. Maybe one more or one less. We're around there anyway. It's not long for Angus Fender to hold on, but he's got fierce competition here in a very important battle. Yeah, and this is a very peculiar end to the race, because we've just spent the past 25 minutes, haven't we, Ewan, saying about how strong the Angus Fender was looking, and that it was looking unlikely for Luke Whitehead to make any gains, as Gregor Fisher gets a 5-second penalty. Then I'm going to presume that is for the contact there on now who was that? Was that not Hulleman?
Ulrich.
Ulrich. Was
it Ulrich or the other one? That's the thing.
Well, that's what we'll have to wait and see. But that gap's come down massively now. It's down to 1.1 seconds. So the McLaren, maybe as it's got a lighter fuel load, maybe it's a little bit more. We saw it right out the pits. It was fast, and then it just sort of fell back. And I wonder if it's had a bit of a second wind here. But either way, yeah, this is a bit awesome for the final 7 minutes of the race.
Yeah, absolutely. Give me 5, including this one actually, but the lap times are a lot bigger than they were, so who knows. 9 tenths. Whitehead will be hoping there'll be 50 laps to go, to be honest, rather than just 5, because he needs all the time he can get to try and make his way through on Angus Fender right now. But he's not going to get that. Only just under 7 minutes as we go on board with the GCWR Yas Heat car. This McLaren all of a sudden on light fuel, really motoring. And just word on fuel as well. I do wonder, because obviously you do have to take a little bit of fuel on board in these races. Not a full tank, but you do have to take a little bit of fuel on board in these races to make it to the end. It is an hour and a half. I just wonder, has that BS competition miscalculated here? Is this race going a lap longer than they were expecting it to? Or are they okay? Is that why this gap is coming down? If the gap back out to a second, so you'd suggest maybe not. But it's something that will play on the minds of everybody, because of course the amount of laps we'll have in the second stint of this race will not be the same as the first, even though everybody came in roughly on the 45-minute mark.
Well, that's absolutely the case, isn't it? It's fascinating to see how this one is going to develop here. 5 minutes left to go in the race, and the BMW now. The thing is that it doesn't look like the BMW has, slowed down any whatsoever. It just looks like it's the other way about. It looks like it's the McLaren of Luke Whitehead that is really started ratcheting up that pressure, and that it's actually a 10-second penalty for Gregor Fisher. He saw it going up in 5-second increments there, but 5.5 minutes left to go. Whitehead really squeezing everything that he possibly can, and look at that, 0.8 of a second now to the BMW up in front you, and this is starting to get a little bit scary now for Angus Fender in that 89 machine up in front, of course, of the BS Plus competition. And Gregor Schiller, I can imagine, is watching this very nervously right now as the cars away to make their way up to Coppice for the 55th time.
Well, let's see. There's a lap car as well, the 72 of Haskell. We'll have to try and get out of the way here, because these two are bearing down in very quickly. Does indeed on the back straight. Does he let both of them through? Does indeed. Fender just weaves around a little bit. Whitehead will definitely know that Fender has seen him in the mirrors and will be checking them every now and then, of course. The the McLaren has been known to be very good on the brakes. We've seen some very late braking manoeuvres from those a little bit further down in the order. That might be what's required for Whitehead here to take the race lead away as we bear down on 3 laps to go at Donington Park. Only 4 minutes for Luke Whitehead to find his way through, but he is certainly turning up the heat now, and he's going to have to, because there's not long left.
That's a brilliant insight, actually, Ewan. Well done. I didn't notice that about the BMW, about the difference in the braking. Obviously, the brake balance and the weight ratio is set up differently in that BMW to the McLaren. You see the McLaren jinking out to the left slightly there, just so it gets a better run through Redgate, through Hollywood, and down through the Craner curves there as well. So, again, they know exactly where they need to place that car there. The BMW can get a little bit away with more away with using those curbs than the McLaren can. We've seen McLaren's touching the curbs several times through the course of this race here, and really getting themselves into big trouble every time they've done it here. But the BMW seems to get away with it more than that McLaren as they come through Coppice now onto Starkey Straight. This is it. This is going to be the move from Luke Whitehead, Ewan, and we're going to surely have potentially a change for the lead here.
Well, it was a little bit wide from Fender, but then Luke Whitehead got his own little tank slapper on the exit of turn 8 there, so he won't be able to make the move down into the chicane, but he's got a nice run, very good run through, and the Melbourne hairpin might be the opportunity for Whitehead to get through. He's not quite late enough on the brakes into here to hang it all the way around the outside, or is he? He's going to attempt to do so, but Fender holds it on the inside line at the moment and will stay in front into the final turn also on the inside line once more, and Whitehead on the outside. It's almost deja vu for these guys. 10 seconds later, Whitehead once again with a great exit. He's almost pulling alongside the BMW before they've got to the start-finish stripe. They come through the pit boxes and now onto the first turn again. The straight not quite long enough really for the McLaren to stretch its legs. Outside line, and it's a good exit again for the third corner in a row. But Whitehead can't find his way through as they head down the crater curves for the penultimate time.
Well, kids, I bet you didn't know that BMW built a double-decker bus, and this is what we're seeing out in front right now. This is going to be Defensive Masterclass 101. You normally have to pay for this sort of sim racing advice, and this is going to be an absolute masterclass from Angus Fender. Thrilling stuff. Of course, there is a battle going on all the way through the field, and we'll do our best to bring it up to speed. But let's face it, this is absolutely gripping stuff right now. Cannot take our eyes off of this fight because you know something is going to happen here. It's bubbling over so nicely. That McLaren gets the run out of Coppice, then down the run through Starkey Straight, and this is on the edge of your seat stuff because it's going to be the final lap as they come across the line next time by here. Oh my goodness me, I'm genuinely, I have no idea what's going to go on. And we've got lap traffic, of course we do.
Lap traffic as well. Whitehead didn't have a great chicane there. He did lose a bit of time. And has that given Fender just the advantage he needs to hold out for this race win? There's 1 minute to go. That's 1 minute too many for Angus Fender because there's still one lap to go. Whitehead wide again through the final turn. It's a decent exit, but this gap has extended to nearly 7 tenths. Is that enough for Fender to hold on to this race win in the BS competition BMW? It will be their second race win of the season and their second in 2 weeks. But can they hold on? There's lap traffic involved as well. These two cars are not fighting. They're on different laps indeed. It's the Writer Engineering Esports Porsche along with another one, I think possibly the 38 Porsche going a lap down for the first time here today, but or the second time indeed, not sure, but they're going to have to try and get out the way here. 6 tenths is the margin as they come up to turn 7 now for Fender. He's now getting slowed up by these two cars who are trying to figure things out between themselves. They go on to the right hand side, they get out the way. Do they get out the way of Whitehead as well? They do indeed. So good lap traffic from both of those guys there, but the gap's still half a second. Whitehead is eking every last bit of performance out of this McLaren as he can at the moment, but it still might not be enough here. Fender's still got half a second, 8 tenths indeed, coming into the final sector of this lap, the final sector of this race. An hour and a half of racing, and it all comes down to the final few corners. There are car lengths between them though. Whitehead is too far back at this stage. It's going to take a mistake from Fender to take this away from him at this stage. He accelerates out of the Melbourne hairpin for the final time, and surely he's going to take home victory now. Just one more braking zone, one more turning point, and one more acceleration to do, and he's got this one won. He has. Angus Fender brings it over the line for BS Competition as they win their second race in 2 weeks, this time at Donington Park, and this time it was a lot closer. 7 tenths of a second the margin at the end. Luke Whitehead gave it his all, but it wasn't quite enough. Angus Fender holds on.
Do you remember at the start of the race where we worried about that 75 just streaking off into the distance with the race? And wow, what a second half to that race here. And that was incredible stuff. Jonathan Riley going to finish in 4th position. Victor Nicolai will cross the line in 5th. Gregor Fisher in 6th position. Valentin Barry in 7th. But wow, that was just breathtaking. That was an epic fight, and more of that, please. I mean, come on, seriously, that was just so good to watch. Yeah, it was just amazing stuff. So, Ewan, I mean, your thoughts on that race, mate?
Yeah, it was very exciting indeed, going towards the end. I mean, one thing I will say, I feel like that race was won on the penultimate lap through the chicane there, because Luke Whitehead was hounding Fender throughout the entirety of throughout the entirety of the final 10 minutes. But on that penultimate lap, he did just make a small mistake. Went a little bit deep into the first part, and so obviously got over the curve a little bit, got a bit of a slide, didn't get a great exit down onto the front straight. The next straight towards the Melbourne hairpin, if you like. And so the race maybe would have been lost there. But let's just take a quick look at the race results before we do anything else. So we've spoken about Fender versus Whitehead 1 and 2. Mikhail Statsenko, along with Jaroslav Honzik, they're going to finish third ahead of Jonathan Riley for Volante, fourth. Victor Nikolai for West Competition Racing, their second top five in a couple of weeks. Gert Fischer finishes sixth for Butterfly Effect Esports. Then Valentin Barrier for Jardier Community, the 99 BMW, the 991 Bentley, and the 70 Porsche round things off throughout through the top 10. That's the 38, the 199, the 5 Aston Martin on debut manages fourth place. The 23 McLaren just ahead of the 125. The Reiter Engineering 724 car finishes 16th ahead of the 17 of Beerhoff. Haskell in 18th for the 72 BMW team, and finally the Ferrari, of course, that didn't make it to the end, unfortunately. Harley Smith and Craig Hamilton finishing their race after only 28 laps or so, which was a shame to see. That was a very, very exciting end to this race. Angus Fender versus Luke Whitehead, all the way down to the very end. We're going to be speaking to the both of them after this one, which should be good to see. Let's take a quick ad break before we do that, though. On the other side, we'll be speaking to Gregor Schill and Angus Fender. Yeah, we'll be back in a couple of moments' time.
Unleash the racer in you and feel the thrill of racing all out on the open road.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Show me what you got. Oh,
Is that everything you got?
last turn.
Catch me if you can.
That was great.
That was a good game.
Unlock true experience with GT Omega.
Hello.
Welcome back to Donington Park, where we've just seen a fantastic finish to that race. BS Competition just about seeing off Yassit and GTWR by 7/10 of a second to run out winners in this one. Both of the drivers from BS Competition now join us. Angus Fender, but first, Gregor Schill starting this race, of course. Gregor, it was dry at the start. It feels like a completely different race about an hour and a half ago. But you were at second position throughout much of your stint. How was it for you trying to chase down that McLaren? It looked like it was quite a challenging stint for you, actually.
Yeah, where should I start? Like everything, I don't want to say went downwards for myself in quali, but I couldn't get the lap together. Like my quick lap was the first one. I drove behind George, and then I just couldn't basically get the lap together since then. So I just basically made my life already much harder because I think I knew I could follow George a bit. He did like awesome pace, but it was possible with the M4 maybe just to try to stay behind him. But yeah, then the start was actually quite good. I really went like good from the line, and then the McLaren was just like having a bit worse exit out of turn one, so I actually had to lift. Otherwise, I would have rear-ended him, and then the Porsche was still between us. And yeah, it was just like really, really, really tough then to overtake the Porsche because he was like, I won't say all over the place, but he like did a lot of mistakes and was really hard to judge what he was doing. But then I actually made the overtake into the chicane where we went side by side into it, and he turned into me and then went off the gravel, which was unfortunate for him. But I think at the end it was just like a racing incident. But from that onwards, like I saw George like 2.5 seconds ahead of me, and I was like, yeah, come on, let's try to close the gap, and it was so hard because when I did a quicker lap, the next lap George was matching me again. You know, it was like trading lap times over the entire stint. It was quite a lot of fun, I have to say. And then I think the gap was like 2.5 seconds when we went into the pits for the stop for the wets, and we were like, yeah, let's see. Normally the McLaren has like the upper hand in the wet, so we don't really know if we can fight for the win. Maybe we just bring the car P2 home. Then I thought, yeah, I'll just try everything and maybe get a quick pit stop, really break as late as possible. And then I was when I was counting down the time for Angus when he will be like driving the car, I was like still looking in the mirror to the McLaren. I was like, why are they not driving? And then suddenly Angus drove and we were ahead of them. It was like such an amazing feeling. And from that onwards, like Angus just managed. I think the pace was able to build a small gap, but then suddenly like the McLaren got the upper hand of the car, then they closed the gap. But at the end, I think we had a really nice battle for the lead, and I'm really happy that me and Angus ended the race on P1.
Yeah, for the second time in 2 weeks, indeed. Just on that last battle as well, Gregor. What is it like being a teammate of a car in that situation? It was quite nervy for us as neutrals, to be honest, to watch that battle. It was very exciting. What's it like being a teammate of one of the cars involved?
I don't like it. I hate being like I hate if I watch my teammate driving in such situations. I rather would drive on my own because I like to have it in my own hands. But when you're just driving, of course I won't talk that much to Angus because I just want to let him focus and so he can judge the situations on his own. But I rather would like drive on my own in this situation and decide what move we should do. But at the end, that's those team races. You need to trust your teammates, and I definitely trust Angus and Niels and Arto, of course, to don't do anything stupid, so to say. And yeah, he did well. He defended really good against the McLaren when it counted for the 1 or 2 laps, and that's what brought us P1 at the end.
Yeah, absolutely, and that speak to Angus Fender as well, who was driving the car throughout the second half of that stint. What was that battle like from the driver's seat, Angus? Because it was very exciting for us watching. I can imagine quite nerve-wracking conditions, obviously not ideal, and you had a very fast car bearing down on you as well.
I mean, I loved it. I don't know about you guys. I was relishing the fight out front. We did a bit of a blind. I say we. It was Greg did a bit of a blinder through the first stint and the stops to jump the McLaren in the pits. We didn't think the car would be able to compete with the McLaren, especially when it rained. And I think the heavier the rain got, the more and more the McLaren came on to a point where I had to kind of park a little bit with a couple laps to go. But I mean, yeah, seeing as I think we've both done nigh on no preparation. We've only driven for a few hours today. Obviously, I was away at the weekend and I've got a lot of uni work to do. It's just it's like honestly, I wouldn't have expected anything like this. So it makes it even sweeter to come away with it after the circumstances we've had.
Yeah, absolutely, and a very difficult race for everybody, I suspect. The conditions were not ideal, as I mentioned. How much warning pre-race did you guys actually get about the weather, and what were your thoughts when you knew that it was going to rain? Were you excited by the challenge, or were you slightly fearful? Because, as you say, you note there the McLaren is favourable, maybe.
Yeah, to be honest with you, it's more of a surprise that it was dry for quali in the start of the race because the practice servers we'd driven on were wet, varying levels of standing water around the track. So we had a wet setup that we trusted and had a fairly good feel of. And then suddenly we rock up in the race server and it's dry. And we have zero setup, zero preparation. So just threw something together last minute. Yeah, when we saw the rain, kind of like proximity, I suppose, the timer, I jumped out the server, got some pressures, came back in, told them to Gregory, plugged them into the game, and I guess it all kind of fitted together like a jigsaw because it ended up working a charm.
Yeah, certainly did. And I guess after a difficult weekend in British GT last weekend, I hate to remind you, but does this make up for it? Are you feeling a little bit kind of more positive now, maybe after a couple of days?
I don't particularly like people saying the term "it was a tricky weekend" because they don't understand the context of what it was. I mean, both drivers last weekend in British GT, it was their first time driving the car, first time sitting in the car. It was my AM driver's first race in Britain and her first race in 2 years. So that you couldn't have expected much, to be honest with you. So it was more of treat it more as a shakedown. And the successful part of that was having a car that mechanically was bulletproof. That's the success in that. So the result didn't really matter that much to us. But obviously on the sim, I'm familiar enough. I'm an old enough hand when it comes to this kind of thing. So put me in a battle for the lead. I'll love it. I'll love every second of it, and I'll try and make the best job of it that I can.
Absolutely, that's absolutely fair enough. So, congratulations to you both, of course. Another race victory here in the GT Omega Challenger Cup. Angus, Gregor, thanks very much for coming to join us, and once again, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Cheers, guys. All the best.
Thank you very much to Gregor and Angus for joining us there for a little interview. Also being joined as well now by the guys in second position, George Boothby and Luke Whitehead. Let's talk to Luke Whitehead first because you were in the car at the end, I suppose, chasing down Angus towards the end of that one. How was that? You got oh so close, of course, but weren't quite able to make it.
In a short word, it was painful. It was really quite frustrating. I mean, we were dropping off at the start of the stint, as we kind of expected. The BMW, I think, in the wet is really, really strong, and it showed that at the start. And then later in the stint, for some reason, we just started gaining time back, and the car, once it got on lower fuel, it just clicked, and it was like someone had flicked a switch on the car, and it just came alive. And the pace at the end was really strong. Like, it caught me by surprise, and I was just driving absolutely out my skin. And then we unfortunately caught one of the back markers. I think it was one of the M4s that was a couple of laps down, and that lost us 2.5 seconds, which was a big hit. And I think if that hadn't have happened, we would have had a lot more time to, hustle and harry Angus. But yeah, it's a shame, but it happens. Donington is a tight and narrow circuit. You've got guys that, struggle in the wet and maybe aren't as maybe in control, let's just say, of the car, so they might not be able to put out the way. And especially through the craners, it's quite difficult even in the dry just to get out the way there. So it is what it is. It happens. We gave it our best shot to come back from the bug after the pits, but yeah, I'm happy with the result from George and myself.
Yeah, absolutely, and George as well, who joins us, George Boothby.
Hey.
Obviously, a nice first stint for you. Certainly, are you a little bit disappointed that you weren't able to convert as a team to that kind of really, really good opening stint with a race victory, or are you going to take second here?
Yeah, it's obviously, you're going to be disappointed that you didn't get the win, but I mean, P2 is still a really good result. Yeah, I think my first stint was like, I was just pushing so hard throughout the whole thing to try and keep that gap. I think the BMW had like the pace on us, like they definitely had a little bit more time in the bank, but I think because they were pushing to catch up, they kept making a few little mistakes, so sort of managed to keep that gap the same throughout the stint. But then, yeah, I went to the pit stop and I missed my box, so it is what it is. I lost 3 seconds from that, and they came out in front. So, I mean, it happens, it happens. I could moan and cry about it and blame whatever, but at the end of the day, I should have been a bit more aware of it. So, hopefully next time that doesn't happen. We're at Spa, so that's a really good track for the McLaren, and yeah, maybe we can claw back a few more points to the BS Plus boys.
Yeah, absolutely. We look forward to seeing you guys there in a couple of weeks' time. But for now, George, Luke, thanks very much for coming to join us. It's been good to have you here, and yeah, congratulations on second place today.
Yes, thanks, guys.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Thanks very much. The guys from second position in their McLaren, of course, GTWR and Yassi. Now finally joining us from third position on the standings here today, Jody and Mikhail Statsenko, of course, joining us now. Jody, welcome. Good to have you here for the first time in this series this season. How was that race for you? Obviously, as I say, first time you've been here this season. So are you pleased with the third position out here today?
Oh, yeah. It's first of all great to be here, guys. Thank you so much for having us. And I hope you enjoyed our livery, by the way, in the race. And yeah, it was great. I was not very happy with myself because in the quali I did like a good lap, but I could have done better, and I couldn't hit it. And I was really hoping that I will be ahead of the BMW at the start, but it didn't work out. And then basically Gregor was just flying away, and in the first like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I was kind of holding with him, but then he just pushed away, and and he was just flying, and I couldn't match his pace. So yeah, look, absolutely hats off to BS Plus today.
Yeah, absolutely. They were very quick indeed. And Mikhail, you obviously brought the car home third place. As I say, how difficult really were the conditions out there though for the McLaren? It looked pretty wet from what we were seeing. How were the conditions? Were you skating around much, or were things? Did you have things under control?
You know, it was a bit boring from battling point of view. So like nobody in front, nobody behind, but it was actually like very interesting to drive that car. So it was like really hard to drive a dry setup on a wet track because it's like it tend to fall into like long slides. If you understeer a bit, it tend to like understeer more and more. If you oversteer a bit, it's like it's oversteers more and more. So you were needed to be like very careful and neutral with the car.
Yeah, absolutely. But you guys did a very good job indeed to bring the car home, of course, in third position. So thanks very much to both of you for coming to join us. And yeah, we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. Congratulations on third place.
Hey,
Yeah,
thank you guys.
thank you.
See you next week.
See you.
Thanks very much, Jody and Mikhail Satsenko joining us there from third place here today for the ASSET community team. That is it then for the interviews here. We've spoken to the top three teams. And now I guess one last thing is to sign off. David, it's been a very enjoyable evening indeed. Wet weather conditions in the UK, who would have thought it? But it threw up, I should say, a very interesting race indeed. And our closest finish of the season so far.
And here's hoping it's not going to be the last. Really did genuinely enjoy that tonight. One of the best races we've had at the championship so far. And off to Spa next time. So A, we're off to Spa, one of the iconic GT3 circuits. And B, I get a week off. Because it's Chris Buxton back in the commentary box, King Kodiak in the flesh with you in the commentary box. So I will be having a beer next week, and I'll be kicking back watching on the old Twitch channel.
Yeah, it's going to be Chris Buxton, as you say, joining me in that occasion. Don't, by the way, turn up next week expecting to see racing because it's not. It's the week after. So we've got a week.
Yeah, sorry, I saw that. And I'm like.
So
my brain's not working.
Don't turn up expecting racing next week because you'll be disappointed, I'm afraid. It'll be 2 weeks' time when we visit Spa-Francorchamps. It's going to be a great race, though, well worth tuning in for. So make sure you join us on the Twitch channel, of course. It's been a pleasure having your company here tonight once more. Very much enjoyed the racing once more. Yeah, a big thank you to everybody who's been tuned in. This has been the GT Omega Challenger Cup here from Donington Park, and until the next race in a couple of weeks' time, it's goodbye for now.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Show me what you got. Oh,
Is that everything you got?
last turn.
Catch me if you can.
That was great.
That was a good game.
Unlock true experience with GT Omega.
Unleash the racer in you and feel the thrill of racing all out on the open road.